There it is.
Welcome to Source One Saturday Night Mashup. My name is Nico Lagan. As always, my co-host Jason Lavigne, and tonight we are joined by Dominion Society of Canada founders Daniel Tyrie, Greg Wycliffe. We also joined by Tajana Cecik, and I apologize for massacring your name again, and Canadian veteran Jeff Evely to tackle probably the most controversial topic in politics today, remigration. Our question for you is very simple. Does Canada need remigration? Welcome, welcome, and welcome. So, as always, we do a little quick round the table to introduce people, just in case people don't know you. So we'll start at the bottom left. Jeff Evely, welcome. What's going on?
Well, it's Christmas, so Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm hanging out in Ottawa here, just visiting my Jewish baby grandson, and I'm a 20-year veteran, Canadian Armed Forces, released in 2021, September. Basically did a combat role out of the military and right into the freedom movement. Got arrested a few times for going maskless, and took off to the convoy, Rolling Thunder, James Top, 1 Million March for Children, 2025 election, and most recently I took a walk in the woods and a $25,000 fine. So we'll be going to court for that in February. Stay tuned.
Greg, your turn. Tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Yeah, my name is Greg Wycliffe. I'm a Canadian content creator. Just finished up my first documentary about the pitiful state of free speech in Canada. I'm also one of the founding board members of the Dominion Society. Tonight, I hope we get to go over why supporting Dominion Society and remigration is a no-brainer. But yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Diana, welcome again.
Awesome. Hey, I'm Tajana Cecik. I was called on this panel just because I have kind of an interesting balanced view on a lot of things that are going on. I know a lot of people hate me, and that's okay, but I'm just going to put the controversial views out there and see what happens. So that's me. I'm just here to piss off a bunch of liberals and all politicians, to be honest. I'm kind of hated by all sides because I call them all out, so what are you going to do about it?
I'm happy that you made your own introduction because balanced is not a word I would have used to describe you. David, welcome. David, welcome.
Daniel?
Or Daniel. Oh, man. My apologies, sir.
You're muted, brother.
My name's Daniel Tyrie. I'm the founder and chairman of the Dominion Society. I work with Greg to advance the interests of our organization. We're a new metapolitical organization focused on promoting the concept of remigration and Canadian nationalism within the Canadian political discourse. Before that, I was involved in the People's Party of Canada. I served as the executive director of the organization from just after the 2019 election until May of 2024. And then earlier this year in July, Greg and I launched the Dominion Society. So definitely very relevant tonight's discussion to what we do. Our main goal is kind of to popularize this concept of remigration, which I believe is desperately necessary in Canada, which is the central focus for tonight. So I'm happy to be here to explain what we believe remigration is and how it can be implemented and why it's in the best interest of all Canadians.
And of course, Mr. Lavigne.
Thank you very much, Nico. Jason Lavigne, host of the Lavigne Show. I do lots of interviews with a bunch of different people and different topics. My ambition is to learn and share that information. And today I'm really excited to learn more about remigration. What does it mean to Dominion Society? What does it mean to other people? And what does it mean to Canada as a whole? Do we need it? If so, how's the marketing and the PR for it? And what would be the best approach to getting that information out there? I'm really looking forward to this panel. I think we have a good collection here to get that information specifically out. And I'm looking forward to some debates, some civil conversation, and maybe some drunk Tiana. It's going to be fun.
Nico Lagan, content creator, political commentator, professional asshole. I'm very similar to Tajana. I piss off both sides. The left or right don't like me, but that's why I do what I do, right? So let's this is a topic that I'm hearing left, right, and center. The left is talking about it, the right is talking about it, but Jason and I really wanted to give the space to people that are promoting it to come here and take the time to explain it to people, because it seems that we hear there's two main groups. There's you guys and there's Second Sons that really talks about remigration. And I want to give you the space, and I'm especially talking to Greg and Daniel right now, to tell us what is, because it's simple, right? What is remigration? What do you guys consider remigration, and what are the problems that it addresses?
Okay, so on that note, let's go ahead and start with Daniel as the founder of Dominion Society. You should be able to define it. This is not a woman we're talking about. It's difficult for people to define a woman, but I'm pretty sure you can define remigration. Daniel, go for it.
I think I could describe both of those, define both of those terms pretty easily, to be frank. But we'll start with remigration. We'll see where tonight goes. Simply put, remigration is the polar opposite of mass immigration. So it's pretty self-explanatory from the word. Mass immigration is when people come here. Remigration is when they go back. So it's a comprehensive set of policies set to reverse the impacts of mass immigration and maintain and preserve a nation's ethnocultural identity. So we at the Dominion Society, we've broken down remigration and made a specific tailored plan for the Canadian context. We have a 10.3 phase plan that breaks down everything from temporary foreign workers and asylum claimants to permanent residencies and citizens, all these different issue areas to kind of not only halt mass immigration, but also undo the kind of damage that it's done over the last few decades, but in particular over the last kind of 10 years under Justin Trudeau, when mass immigration kind of went off the rails and kind of veered off in unprecedented and radical ways. So many people in this and so many political parties are willing to accept that mass immigration has become a problem, but very few entities are willing to actually address this problem comprehensively. They give us solutions to kind of deal with the consequences of mass immigration. Myself and us as an organization, we come forward and say, hey, wait, we don't have to just accept the mistakes of previous generations of politicians. We can offer policies that correct for their mistakes and undo what they've done to our society. So personally, I consider myself a nationalist. And when I say that, I mean that I view things I don't view Canadians as just atomized individuals. I view them as components of the broader nation. So this kind of living organism that exists intergenerationally throughout time, a group of people with a shared ancestry and heritage, identity and culture. And I think that as a nationalist, my goals politically are to preserve the best interests of the broader nation. And right now I see mass immigration as the main problem in society, because it's actively transforming the nation and watering it down and changing it into something else. And I think that the goal of the nation state when it comes to immigration needs to take in a nation's national identity when setting kind of boundaries and goals. And this has not been really taken into consideration in modern immigration policy. It's all been very kind of economically focused. And as a result, we're seeing the transformation of Canadian society into something very different and very foreign. And I don't want to pass on a foreign country to my children. I want to pass on the country I was born into and the country my parents and grandparents were born into. I think we have a duty to preserve that society and pass it on to the next generation. Right now, the only way to do that is through remigration, just given the kind of unprecedented mass immigration policies that were pushed onto Canada over the last few decades, but particularly over the last kind of 10 to 20 years.
Great introduction. I think it's pretty easy to follow. Greg, we're going to come to you next. As the director producer of the Hate Network, by the way, I was at the screening, the world premiere in Calgary, great movie. You know what it's like to deal with media, the hate that comes from the media, the twisting and the redefinitions that come out of the media. So how do you see that affecting the migration conversation that you and Daniel are trying to have?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of just jump off of something Daniel was saying, which I think is important to emphasize, which is, people like Daniel and myself and true nationalists, we recognize what a nation is, like in the true definition of what a nation is. And it's not a geographical spot. It's not GDP. It's not just the housing market. It's not just the the stock market. It's people. It's the people of the nation. It is people with a shared ancestry, shared history, culture, language, and we're people that see mass immigration as an existential threat. Like if this continues, if this replacement migration continues, that's actually the end of Canada. Like maybe if the GDP goes up, but like it's, the Canadian people are no longer there, our culture is no longer there. That's not Canada anymore, folks. So I really want to emphasize that this is the most existential threat to our nation. And but I'll kind of say something else to kind of segue into what you're talking about. Why I'm really excited about Dominion Society is it really comes from a place of self-love and self-preservation and self-respect. As we kind of continue some of these conversations of kind of butting heads with some of our critics and some of the people who are trying to gatekeep us, we realize how indoctrinated Canadians are, how demoralized they really are, and how like the basic impulse to preserve yourself and just preserve your culture and your history and honor that, it's completely foreign to so many Canadians because they've just been beaten with billions and billions of dollars of propaganda for so long. And we're really happy at Dominion Society to actually be remoralizing Canadians to help them realize that, no, this is just about self-respect and self-love. Like there's actually nothing wrong with that. And and then we get called racist, right? So, just by the matter of talking about immigration, it's no surprise in Canada, it's dominated by the CBC, it's dominated by state-funded media. And, they don't like this. They want to keep the tap on for mass immigration for various reasons. It imports liberal voters. It imports cheap foreign labor. It helps kind of disintegrate, if you're into the World Economic Forum stuff, it kind of disintegrates the idea of this nation being an independent thing that can stand up against the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda, right? Like it kind of like waters that down and disintegrates like a nation who could actually stand up for itself and not just be part of the UN or whatever. So there's a lot of reasons why they want to keep the tap on for immigration. And they weaponize the term racist. They try to say that remigration is ethnic cleansing, and they're going to use all sorts of comparisons and words to try to make us look like these big boogeymen, when really we're just people who are encouraging Canadians to stand up for themselves, to love themselves, to want their nation to continue to exist.
Fair. And by the way, I loved your movie. So people are going to be checking out the Toronto screening. That'd be a great thing for them to do. Jeff, I'm going to come to you next. You and I were both candidates for the PPC in the last federal election. PPC has been talking about this since 2018. Daniel was probably behind some of that conversation as well. And recently they started to talk about remigration and specifically using that term as well. So what are your thoughts about the transition to remigration within the PPC? And what's your definition of remigration?
Well, I think the last time around here, I said that I've been talking about this for years, and I think Maxime Bernier has been talking about it for years. I don't know where the term remigration came from. It seems like it's a buzzword for what we've been talking about for quite some time. I think that they're using it in the UK now with the UKIP party as well, so it does seem to be catching on. In terms of what I think we have to do, like mass immigration certainly is an existential threat. I would agree on that, and it is time for them to go back. I can remember even when they were doing the Syrian migrant crisis. That was how Justin Trudeau got elected. It wasn't just the legalization of weed, by the way. The press used the body of a drowned toddler in, I think it was in Greece, where he washed up during the migration crisis to really shame Canadians into accepting 40,000 Syrian migrants, and Trudeau was the one who outbid everybody else. And as it turns out, the kid's dad was actually a human trafficker, and he was already safe and sound in Turkey, on his way to Germany to get some new teeth. So I'll kind of just, another big lie. But in terms of what we have to do now, I would say first and foremost, we've got to cut them off and stop paying people to sit around in hotels plotting terrorist attacks against us, and especially into the United States. We're getting ISIS terrorists picked up in Toronto for plotting terrorist attacks into New York, on video, crucifying a Christian and dismembering them. in Syria. So we have some real serious problems there. And I think as soon as we turn off the money fire hose, a lot of them will just kind of move on to another sucker, or they'll go home. Birthright citizenship is another problem. There are a lot of anchor babies, and their mommies actually live in China and India for the most part. So there are all these. There's this chain migration that's been set up, and I think Carney, I just saw, is bringing it all back where. We're changing the law again so that a Canadian will be millions of people all over the world just on the basis that they happen to have a relative who was born on our soil. So we got to get rid of that. And I think that permanent resident should probably mean something, as in you're a permanent resident. You're not a citizen. You can come here and you can work and you can pay taxes and have a peaceful, productive life and have children and send them to school here, and they can vote when they get older. But if you're a first generation immigrant, I think that you probably shouldn't be able to vote. These are just vulnerabilities in our election systems that we need to shore up. I think once the gravy train, once the biscuit wheels come off this gravy train, then we probably won't have anywhere near the kinds of problems that we do right now. Even welfare reform, I think we could throw that in there. There are a lot of Muslim families out there that are polyamorous, and it's just that the wives all live in different apartments from the husbands, and they all get their own separate welfare checks instead of living together as a family. So yeah, there's it's a lot of self-sabotage on our part, and we're funding our own demise. So I think first and foremost, we should stop funding our own demise. And then beyond that, we're probably going to need a joint CBSA, CSIS, RCMP, CAF task force to clean up some of the nastier elements that have made their way in here, especially those affiliated with terrorist organizations. And I expect that we would probably need some help with the Americans on that one, given that the CBSA and the RCMP are pretty clearly compromised at this stage. So we got a lot of, we certainly got our work cut out for us. But I think it starts with turning off that money fire hose.
That'll be an interesting thing to try and get done when the CBSA, RCMP, and the House of Commons are all compromised, it looks like. Tajana, you came to Canada for a better life, but now you're in Texas. So I guess you didn't find that better life. What do you think about remigration?
You know what's really funny is I've worked in Australia, I've worked in Norway for a year or two while I was living in Canada, and nobody had an issue until I came to the United States. Then everybody was like, oh, you left Canada. Oh, you're just running away. It's like, or maybe I just work abroad to, broaden my resume, but whatever. So the thing with reimmigration and the entire, what should I call them? I guess the People's Party of Canada, is that you isolate people like me. And I'll be honest with you, like we've got Tracy Smith 2731, who says that I'm a male, and they go into conspiracy theories that aren't real, that the government's put out there to kind of, I guess, show the world how stupid certain conspiracy theories are. And Tracy Smith 2731 takes on those conspiracy theories. So you're isolating a bunch of immigrants like myself who absolutely love Canada. Yeah, do I bash on Canadian liberals? Absolutely, because I've seen the exact same thing happen to Yugoslavia with Yugoslavian liberals. And they sold out the country. They sold it out for virtue signaling, for stupid pride and all of that shit. And the thing that I want to just tell Dominion Canada and the PPC is you're isolating people like me. You know what I mean? Like calling people that just immigrated to Canada that are now working in the United States, who call out the bullshit and all of the psychological warfare that's being done on you as people who are bad. But if I didn't care about Canada, I would have just moved to the United States, closed down all of my account and just shut up. Or I would have started grifting to the American public. So what I want to say is there's a lot of immigrants out there that love Canada, that would love to see Canada the way it was in the 90s. And they want to keep that thing out there. And to isolate those people is actually wrong. So yeah, I will call out everybody. I'll call out like Indian Canadians or like Indians coming to Canada for ruining it. I'll call out Ukrainians. I'll even call out my own people. And I think that's the main thing that people are kind of missing, is there's good people and there's bad people in almost every single color. Now, the mass migration that is happening to Canada is 100% purely to replace old stock Canadians. And I've called that out so many times. But there's also good Punjabi Indians who love Canada, who don't even like their own country, who escape their own country to come to Canada to get away from that. And those are the people that you're isolating. And you would have a lot more power if you just stayed with the fact that, you know, people who love Canada, like myself, versus, like, I would say skin color, because there's a lot of Jamaicans, there's a lot of Cubans who came to Canada that I know personally who love Canada, who love hockey, who love our history, who love our heritage, who would absolutely love to join in on that, but they don't feel like they're welcome. And I think this is kind of isolating in a sense, but at the same time, we do need to call out those who are abusing the system, who are absolutely mass migrating, abusing the system, abusing the welfare system, abusing the migration system just to get in, just to get drugs in, committing crimes. Absolutely, 100%. But a lot of people, like, you know, like Tracy Smith 2731, who take these conspiracy theories, you have to understand that the logic and the IQ of most people are on a retardation level. And so everything that you put out there, it will actually make people a lot more, I should say, supreme, or in that sense, like crazy. And they isolate people like myself. So that's the only thing that I guess I have to say.
I'm curious, why do you feel like you're being like isolated or targeted? Like,
oh, okay, absolutely. I will tell you this. Okay, so you're friends with that Alex Transplendor. I'm pretty sure he's watching because he doesn't really have a job, so he watches everything that's going on online. You guys accused me of taking Brett Wilson's money when in fact I got my visa 8 months prior to going to Brett Wilson.
Sorry. I'm not talking about like internet drama. I'm talking about like why you personally feel targeted by like the messaging of
okay, absolutely. So like I've had what's his pickle? I don't know. What's that guy with the military? I'm really bad with names. He's in the military. He runs your guys' thing. He came on one of my videos, not even watching it, but just some dumb redhead from your Dominion group said, oh, this bitch is always divisive and she's not even Canadian. She's Slavic. Like, she doesn't even belong here. She wasn't even born here. Meanwhile, I'm trying to like warn Canadians of the communism that I've seen in my own country, and I don't want to see it in Canada. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm working in the United States, and I've worked in Norway, and I've worked in like Sweden. And I just find it really weird, the clickiness, the stupidity of majority of the Canadians that are fighting for freedom. Like, even with the trucker protests, there's people being like, oh, this guy started, this guy. Who gives a fuck who started it? Who gives a fuck who was at the front of the thing? It's us versus them. And we are so divided to the point where everyone has these clicky little gay groups. It seems like elementary and high school level shit. Like, grow up. We are all Canadians, and we're against the government. We're against the elites. If you're not, those are the ones that need to be deported. And I think we all need to be like a little bit more open in that sense of the way. Jeremy McKenzie, that's his name. He came on my page, shit on me for shitting on liberals. Do you know what I mean? And it's just this basic, like, oh my gosh, she got out in the United States, let's attack her. Oh, this person's not even born in Canada, let's attack them. And that's exactly what they want. You guys are falling into the exact same elite playground that they want, so that they can divide us, so that we're not stronger together. And that's the one thing that I'm trying to tell Canadians. Listen, you guys have been programmed to be like so cliquey, so high school and elementary, like so stupid, to the point where the elites can come in and bend us over and fuck us all. Like, a lot of people don't understand that when I come after liberal Canadians, I'm doing it because it's so frustrating, because I've seen Yugoslavia go down the same route, and I don't want to see Canada go down the same route. And unfortunately, I'm not going to hold your hand and, like, you know, pet your little head, make you feel better. I'm just going to tell you the truth. And that's the only thing that I wish Canadians will realize. It's us versus them. And there are a lot of Indian Canadians who are now taking advantage of the loopholes that the liberals allowed. And same with the conservatives, because they're a bunch of pussies. And Max Bernier is just trying to, like, pretty much get money out of Canadians while he lives free in Florida. I'm sorry, but I'm going to call out all of them. They're all shit. We all need to come together as Canadians, as people who are against the globalists. Doesn't matter of the skin color, but if you're going to take advantage of the Canadian system, get the fuck out. I don't care what skin color you are, but if you're going to love the Canadian history and the culture, then you should be able to stay, because then we grow in numbers, then we grow in strength, and then we can actually take on these globalists.
Okay, so I think it was fair for you to provide that perspective, Tiana. But one thing we will do is we'll just show that there's two different groups here that we were talking about. You were talking about Jeremy Mackenzie, which is part of Second Sons. I'm pretty sure Dominion Society has their own group. And we're also talking to the two founders of Dominion Society, which gives us the advantage of understanding directly what the messaging is from them. They don't represent those other groups that you're talking about, and specifically the one individual you talked about. But I understand your frustration around that. And my position on remigration is I'm still learning. So I'm a student of it. I'm trying to figure out what it means, because it means something different to a bunch of different groups. And as a husband of an immigrant, under certain groups, she's supposed to leave and take my children with her and leave this country, which of course I'm not for. And as a French heritage, that goes all the way back to 1667, so 200 years before Canada was Canada. I do think I have a representation through my family line to be here, and I'm also allowed to choose my wife and have my children and have them here. So that's kind of my perspective. I'm still learning what remigration means to a lot of people, and this particular conversation is going to be able to flush out some of this. So I really appreciate you providing that perspective. And I do think, Nico, we'll go to you next, and then we'll get right back to Daniel and Greg to respond to some of Tiana's concerns there.
Well, you know what? Before they do answer it, I might have a question that I should have asked before, but I think it's going to put some context to this. And, you know, similar to you, Jason, it's not something, I have my own interpretation of what remigration is, and I don't think that it's based on where you're from. If you're here making the country better, that's great. If you're not, if you're leeching, if you're here to take advantage, you need to go. So that is my definition. It's very, very simple. But I'm curious to know more, because as you said, it's not something that I've been following that closely, but it's becoming a real thing, which is why we wanted to organize the conversation that we're having right now to get a better idea of what remigration means to people out there. But at the end of the day, man, my family has been here for 300 to 400 years. So as you said, I think I belong here. I don't see myself being anywhere else. But at the same time, does that mean that somebody that came here 50, 60 years ago is not as Canadian as I am? I have to be convinced on that one. And this is probably what I should have asked you guys from the get-go is, can you guys define, and I'm talking to the guys from Dominion, what does it mean? What's the definition of Canada, like of being a Canadian? Like, what is a Canadian that you guys believe should stay or should be here in Canada, and who are the people that should leave? Because that's the part I think that is not well explained out there, at least from my perspective.
No, I think that's a fair question, because that's most people's concern, gentlemen, is, well, who does this include and not include? Is it race-based? Is it time in Canada? Is it roots in Canada? Or is it something a little bit more specific, like contribution to Canada, if you're illegal, that kind of stuff? What is the line that you define remigration for? Daniel?
Yeah, these are two really important questions, and they're actually the two questions that our entire website's based around. If you check out dominionsociety.ca, you'll find there's two main pages: what is a Canadian and what is remigration, and it kind of rolls you through these two core concepts, because it's really what's at the heart of our movement, the definition of these two things, and they're two things that are incredibly necessary kind of for different reasons. Since the kind of Trudeau senior era, the identity of what is a Canadian has been completely eroded and replaced with this kind of post-national definition, where it's just based on kind of government paperwork and the acceptance of certain values like liberalism and tolerance and kindness and stuff like this. We reject this notion, and we put forward a definition which is rooted in our history and our heritage. So we believe that being a Canadian is more than just having your citizenship, and it's more than just liking hockey and being a nice person, although these are definitely Canadian qualities. It's also to be a part of the nation, to be a part of this intergenerational family of people. The nation is that kind of next building block: the individual, the family, then the nation. We reject this kind of idea that Canada is a nation of immigrants. These are very new concepts that were kind of introduced in the 70s and 80s as they kind of redefined Canada through this cultural revolution. We point out that true Canadians, heritage Canadians, what we call heritage Canadians, are the descendants of the settlers who came and built Canada from the ground up. We draw this important distinction between settlers and immigrants. These are not the same thing. There's a big difference from someone that comes, that braves hostile waters and lays roots down and carves civilization out of an untamed wilderness, compared to modern economic immigrants who come here to take advantage of our wealth and opportunity. So real Canadians are very much like you guys just pointed out. Jason, with ties back to the 1600s. Nico, your family's been here for 300, 400 years. You're objectively more Canadian than someone who just arrived on a boat 5 minutes ago from India. That, like, this person is not equally as Canadian as you guys are. They can integrate into Canadian society. They can adopt Canadian values. They can start enjoying our culture, our food, our language, our entertainment, and so on. But they are fundamentally less Canadian than you are, because ethnicity, ancestry is a component of this. And countries, nations are built by people for their descendants. And we see Canada as, through mass immigration and multiculturalism, we're giving away our country to people who do not have the same kind of responsibility to it, and fundamentally changing the fabric of what it is. So one, we believe it's very important, given the kind of culture of shame, this post-nationalism that has been pushed in our society. We believe it's very important to come forward with a clear definition of what is a Canadian, putting our foot down and saying, no, there's something fundamentally different from families that have been here for 400 or 500 years compared to people who have just got off the boat and arrived. These are not the same thing. That being said, our remigration plan is not based on ethnicity. We're not talking about removing all non-white people from the country. We offer, as I said, a 10-step, 3-phase plan that prioritizes groups like criminals, illegals, people that objectively should not be here, moving on to people leeching off the system, and asylum claimants, and into mechanisms to target people who were given permanent residency that probably should not have been, people that were taking advantage of birthright citizenship and gaming the system. These are the kind of groups that we're targeting from a policy perspective, because they have the least claim to be here. We're not interested in breaking up families. Obviously, there should be considerations for groups like this. I believe the only true way to assimilate into a nation is intergenerationally, through intermarrying. So Jason, your children, from my perspective, they will only be half Canadian, because your wife is not Canadian. She's an immigrant. And your grandchildren, depending on who they have children with, will be even more Canadian than that. And that's just how it goes. By my own definition, I only consider myself half Canadian. My mother is intergenerational French Canadian. My father is the child of 2 immigrants. So just in the name of intellectual consistency, like, I only consider myself half Canadian. But I think it's very important to be clear about these things, just given how the elites have tried to transform the identity of our nation over the last few generations. This sort of language is unfamiliar to most people, because they're not used to hearing people talk about Canadians in this context. It's much more easy to understand when you talk about countries like Japan or France that have a bit longer histories. But if we're being clear and accurate about Canada's own history, like, it's the truth of any nation that ancestry is going to be a component of it. When our ancestors came here and risked life and limb to build a society out of nothing, they did not intend for it to be a post-national economic zone where anyone from anywhere could come and succeed. Like, they suffered in order to pass a better life onto their children and grandchildren. And I think it's a great disrespect to our ancestors to just hand off this country to other people that are simply undeserving. Like, they have their own countries. There's a homeland for the Indians. There's a homeland for the Africans. There's a homeland for the Japanese. I think there should be a homeland for the Canadians as well. So I'm not interested in being lumped in with the PPC or with Second Sons. These are different groups. We have our own group, the Dominion Society. I don't know why Tajana is kind of saying that we're attacking or anything. I've honestly never heard of you before today. I mean, no offense by that, but I don't believe anyone from my organization has ever attacked you. So I don't appreciate being lumped in that way. But the purpose of the Dominion Society is also not to offer a big tent to everyone and anywhere. Like I'm not interested in winning the support of, or I'm not going to pander to maybe people like Tiana or the hypothetical Indians that she brought up that might like hockey or whatnot. There are tons of advocacy groups out there for people of different ethnicities, for foreigners from all different cultures. What I think is really lacking within our political discourse is people who will unapologetically stand up for what the identity of Canadians and what needs to be done to protect that identity. So that's what we're bringing to the table as the Dominion Society. We want to give a voice to heritage Canadians that have been ignored for far too long. Okay,
so now we'll move to Greg. Now, Greg, even 50 years ago, this would not have been a controversial subject at all. And multiculturalism is what's diluted the conversation of identity so much that this has now become a controversial subject for many. And Canada is not breaking new ground here. We're not being radical by having this conversation. Basically, all over the West, where they feel like there's a replacement going on or a real push on migration to take over the culture or the identity or raise the culture identity of the nation, you're hearing these kind of conversations. So Canada and Dominion Society are not breaking new ground here. They're just standing up a lot stronger than they did 5 years ago. So what do you think about that? And then also maybe go touch on a few things that Tiana had to say there, because her perspective is important, because she does amplify and echo the feelings of many who are looking into this subject for the first time.
Sure. I just wanted to give a quick anecdote, like what is a Canadian? If I were to ask what a Nigerian is, we would all know what a Nigerian is. But ironically or coincidentally, just kind of because of the political climate in 2025, a Nigerian could also be a Canadian.
And ironically, Jeff, or Greg, my wife's Nigerian. All right. So when he's talking about her not being Canadian, she went through the process, legally became a citizen, did the whole
right
before Trudeau step. She's been here for 20 years now. And Nigerian. Ironic that you brought that one up.
Right. And she might say that, Canada is my home, and that's fair. But like when she were to talk about her homeland, it would be Nigeria. So this stuff, it's quite interesting because a lot of conservatives in Canada, so-called conservatives, a lot of so-called right-wingers in Canada who maybe support Poilievre or what have you, they're actually still liberal. Like they still have a very liberal worldview. And a lot of what Daniel has kind of laid out there is kind of like, we all know what a woman is, right? But Daniel's actually saying like, no, we actually know what a Canadian is as well. And a lot of people are like, well, my friend who just got here identifies as Canadian. And it's like, I don't really care if he identifies as Canadian. He might be a citizen. Sure, he's a Canadian citizen, but he's not a Canadian historically in terms of the ancestry and the history. And that's an important distinction to make. And it's really exciting because it's upset a lot of people just by kind of anchoring the conversation at Dominion Society in historical truths. When the country was founded, it was 97% Anglo-French when it was founded. And then even in 1971, it was, I think 70% Anglo-French and then like 96% European. But these stating these facts, of course, it gets you accused of white supremacy for knowing your history. It's quite absurd. But and to address some of what Tiana was saying, I kind of agree in terms of the drama that happens online. There's a lot of kind of people attacking this person. No one can get along, yada, yada, yada. And I think kind of the lesson there is I think that the sort of freedom movement, the kind of anti-globalist movement since the convoy has kind of been a mess. It's kind of been a mess for the most part. There's been maybe a few standouts. There's been the National Citizens Inquiry. I'll give them some credit. There's been I don't know, the Dominion Society. Like I'm already kind of like running out of organizations that have propped up since then, because I think a lot of these kind of like freedom people aren't looking at the long term. Maybe they're kind of still flailing around. And to be fair, I've been there. The fear of seeing people thrown in jail for standing up for bodily autonomy, the fear of like crunching down with the free speech being like taken away, like this is scary stuff. And the fear stops us from thinking calmly, it stops us from looking at the long term, and stops us from actually having good ideas to solve the situation. I really like Dominion Society because it's looking at the long term. It's looking at the long-term plan, and it's all about organizing. It's about political organizing for the long term. It's going to be a lot of work. I could talk for days about username this, username that. They're hating on me. They're saying all these unfair things about me. Maybe some of them even have platforms. You know, I'm freaking blocked by Ezra Levant, the pleb, like Rebel News Online. Like, I don't know why, because I like shared the wrong opinion at some point. But like, that's just part of the game. It's part of the game of trying to continue to advocate for what you want to advocate for. And I ignore that stuff because I know that these people are just trying to get under my skin. They're just trying to, you know, undermine what I'm doing. And you got to keep on pressing on and look at kind of like, what are the actual leverage points? What are the actual things I can do that are going to make an impact? And for me, Dominion Society is a no-brainer. You have the history of Daniel Tyrie working for the PPC. He has the experience of political organizing. Our other board member, Ken, also worked at PPC headquarters. There's a synergy there. They're very hardworking. They know what it takes to talk to people across the country and start organizing them. And it's very, very exciting. Like the phone calls I'm having with members, people who have not been involved in politics before, and they're understanding the sort of self-love, the self-respect. Like what we're advocating for isn't radical. It's only radical in the context we're in. It's in the context of this insane, super hyper liberal status quo. Anybody who suggests anything other than a sort of rainbow DEI for everyone is somehow branded some evil boogeyman. Yeah, like we're radical in that environment. But like if you really look at it objectively, any self-respecting country would implement remigration policies just at the point we're at. So yeah. And again, I encourage people, what is a Canadian? What is remigration? Daniel worked really hard on dominionsociety.ca answering those questions. It's like the 2 links up there. So just to kind of reiterate that, if people want to find out more, it's a good resource.
Thanks, Greg. So Jeff, working in this for years, you've been fighting this issue for a long time. You recognize that it's been an issue. You served for the country, and you have a good understanding of what the Canadian identity is and what a Canadian is. And you're also attacked online. Like basically everybody on the screen here is attacked online by all sides, because we are the true seekers of the ones that speak out. That's what attracts all sides to attack you. So you know this as well as anybody else as well. There's this whole woke right concept that you talk about. So how does that fit into this? And what are your thoughts about what Tajana had to say, specifically around the isolation of a group or a group that feels isolated? Is that fair? I'm sure her comments on it is fair, but is it fair that they should feel that way? And then how do we make sure that we don't self-divide in such a way that this whole thing falls apart?
Yeah, I do think it's fair, and there's well, I think we got to abandon wokeness. We got to defeat wokeism in order to keep the whole thing from falling apart. It's a very polarizing ideology, and it is being driven on purpose. The woke right that you mentioned in particular, I don't like that term. That's James Lindsay's term. I was calling them woke before James Lindsay actually coined that term. Well, he didn't even coin it, but I usually say it's more like residually woke, which is probably something more akin to what Greg was just talking about, where all of these, Trudeau voters, like Mario Zelia out there who voted for Trudeau and now gets to tell the rest of us how to vote. And we got to vote for Canada's new boyfriend, and Canada's new boyfriend is Pierre Poilievre. But in terms of the woke right in particular, it is the product of a foreign-funded PSYOP. There are several reports out there now. The one that immediately springs to mind would be the Network Intelligence Research Institute that showed that A lot of these narratives around Zionism and Jews and stuff like this are actually riding on foreign-funded bot farms, namely Russia, China, and Iran. That's not to say that a lot of them are not organic, but just that our adversaries are very clearly interested in driving this subject well beyond the grasp of all rational discourse. And in the lead up to the bombing of Fordo, for example, we saw the Pakistanis getting in on it, where there were a lot of accounts that were actually Pakistani accounts saying that they were American veterans and my son's not going off to die for Israel. And yeah, I've been absolutely witch hunted by the woke right elements in my own party. In the PPC, and Tajana mentioned Alex Cargill, who was a candidate in the last election, who tried to get me canceled. A lot of people tried to get me canceled. They didn't want me to be a candidate at all for the PPC. Because apparently it's a Groyper party. There seems to be this widespread perception that it's like a Groyper neo-Nazi party, and the platform is something like I guess a veneer to kind of hide that hidden agenda. There's certainly a perception even within the party of that. And Greg was sharing Alex's tweets about me, and just sort of throwing shade because what was the tweet? I need to be vigilant about foreign interference from Israel or something. And that was after a 6-hour debate that I did with the whole Groyper base, 2 hours with Alex and then 4 hours with the rest of the Groypers. And nobody's able to tell me like what the threat emanating from Israel is. And, I get suspicious that this is really kind of the closeted agenda of, say, the Dominion Society, not just for that reason, but I mean, I saw one of Greg's promotional videos where he was talking about ethnostatism. It sounds like you guys are promoting ethnostatism and using Israel as an example as an ethnostate, but I mean, Japan's an ethnostate, and there are, I don't know, probably 80 or so ethnostates in the world somewhere. So the fixation on Israel is the one that I always find to be a bit of a red flag. And I suspect that, neither the Dominion Society or any of these other groups would ever have me on board anyway, because I have a Jewish baby grandson. But, that's just a suspicion. It seems like all of the cultural staples seem to align across these various groups. So, I think that it's intended, the PSYOP, the woke right, is intended to divide populist movements, especially the MAGA movement. And we see a lot of them, like Alex, for example, is constantly attacking Trump now. So they're turning a lot of the MAGA base on Trump. They're totalitarian, collectivist, and Marxist. So there's really nothing right-wing about them. That's why I don't like to say the woke right. And you can't work with totalitarians. You can only work for them. So, that's why you end up getting witch hunted.
Okay, and then to answer this myself, of course, I have no problem with somebody who comes here that wants to work in better Canada. I do not like illegals. They need to go. Anybody who becomes a criminal needs to go. I would Daniel laid out the 10-step process of going through who should be here and who shouldn't be here. I'm not inherently averse to that, because there is a difference between the person who built the house and then those who become the guest in the house. Suddenly the guest can't own the house, as far as I'm concerned. The guest can't kick out the person who built the house. There is a distinction there. Even if you rent the house, it's still not giving you the right to go and take the house. So I do see a distinction there between heritage Canadians and then people who come here. Maybe I'm biased because of my relationship and my love for my family, but I'm also biased in that I think Alberta needs to separate from Canada as a whole. So I'm not very nationalist because of that particular perspective, but I'm very nationalist for the nation of Alberta. So I understand that too. So I'm kind of torn in a few ways here, Dominion Society, so Daniel and Greg, because I have some contradictory polls. But I do understand what you're talking about. There's a big difference between the person who built the home and those who are a guest or even renting the home. They don't suddenly become the owner of the home because they declare it or threaten to use some sort of violence or protest to go ahead and take it. So I see that distinction as well. And Jeff, what's that flag that's behind you on the wall there?
Oh, you mean the red ensign?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a flag we see a lot when we're hearing this particular conversation, because that was the original flag before the current Canadian flag. I think it's Tiana's turn now, so I'm going to come to you. As you heard some of these definitions and laying out more of what they believe a Canadian is, the heritage Canadian versus others, and also what they believe falls under remigration. What are your thoughts? And do please keep in mind the distinction between other groups like Second Sons, even PPC, when it comes to Dominion Society, because Dominion Society has separated themselves from all other groups except for their own.
Absolutely. So, Daniel, you said that I'm not as Canadian as you and you have no idea who I am. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm a fucking asshole and I call out everybody. And unfortunately, I study the psychology of people on a level that the three-letter agencies around the world study people and how they actually manage to divide and conquer us. And you are the perfect, and I mean perfect little lab rat for dividing people. So yes, I was not born in Canada. I am not a born Canadian. I'm married to a Canadian. I loved everything about Canada. I still do. But do I get frustrated at the liberal Canadians who are selling Canada out to like the world globalists? Absolutely. And yes, the globalists are the problems. And when I say globalists, I don't mean Jewish people. That's for like the unintellectual, low IQ motherfuckers who don't actually understand any bit of conspiracy theory. So I'm about to unleash on you. Who made Israel, Daniel? It was the UK. The president or the prime minister of the UK. He actually signed Israel into being before World War II. They started World War II. They paid Hitler to get the Jewish people into Israel so that then they can create more problems between Israelis and Muslims. All of us are being fucked. All of us. Every single religion. Jewish, Muslim, Christianity, whatever level of Christianity, all the Abrahamic religions and all of the other religions with multiple gods, we're all being fucked. And we're being fucked by the Vatican, that is the one that's making all of the deals, and we're being fucked by London, who's the one financing everything, and we're being fucked by Switzerland, who's making everything. I was an immigrant in Switzerland. I would know how I was treated. And yes, you are definitely more Canadian than I am because you were born in Canada. You have more Canadian-like relatives. But I would have fought for Canada until what you said. And all of you little motherfuckers in the comment section who are like IQ level fucking retards of like, oh my God, it's the Jews. Shut the fuck up. Learn that it's the Vatican. Learn that it's the United Kingdom with their money, and learn that it's Switzerland behind all of the brains. And once we learn that the head of the snake and who they are, then we can cut it off, and then we can go back to all being a bunch of racist fucking assholes and having our own countries. Because these same people ruined my country, and I'm trying to get them to not ruin yours. The one that you were born into with all of your ancestors. All I'm trying to do is warn you about the exact same things that they do, exact same steps that they did to Yugoslavia, that they did to the Soviet Union, that they did to every single other country. It is the same freaking playground. It is the same like step-by-step thing. And all I'm trying to do is warn you motherfuckers about the exact same shit that's going to happen in Canada that happened in Yugoslavia. I don't care how like Canadian you think I am. I really don't give a shit. At this point, I really don't care. All I'm trying to tell you is they're after you, your kin, your entire history, and it's not the Jews. It's the British and the Vatican and the Swiss. It's like a nice little triangle of fucking retardation and inbreeding. Please follow the Khazarian mafia and the Canaanites and then read the theology behind it, and you will realize, everybody will realize who's actually after us. They're using Israelis just like they're using Americans, just like they're using Canadians as a puppet. And every fucking retard is like, oh, it's these guys. Oh, it's these guys. UK, Vatican, Switzerland. Literally the fucking shithole of like this entire planet. And they're all a bunch of inbreds. None of them have an actual religion. They're Satanists. They're just pretending to be Jewish so that you guys can blame Jews, but they're actual Satanists. They don't believe in Islam. They don't believe in the Jewish religion. They don't believe in Christianity. They don't believe in any of that shit. They're just using you and all of your freaking psychology to try and get you to divide and hate on each other so that they can take every single Canadian thing and richness and like everything from you guys. And that is what I'm trying to do, is trying to tell you guys, hey, wake up. You guys have a bunch of English, British fucking assholes like Carney, like Epstein, like Maxwell, who literally is a British fucking piece of shit that you guys are like saying she's Israeli. Who made Israel? Churchill. Churchill signed Israel into freaking being. They're being used just like the rest of us. The actual fucking assholes are in the Vatican, UK, and Switzerland. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, well, in recent news, the Vatican just came out and the Pope himself just came out and said, if you do not accept immigration, you're not helping and you should go to hell. Yet the Vatican itself does not accept immigration, and because it is a sovereign nation. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, Nico, we'll go to you and then we'll go right back to Daniel because I think he deserves a response to that. You're muted, Nico.
Like I said earlier, it's not really about me and my opinion today. I just really want to learn more about what your plans are, what you guys believe remigration is, and what should happen in Canada. But I'm still kind of sticky on your definition. Like, you guys tried to explain it. I'm not quite there, as in, I'd like to be able to identify, to look at somebody, look at their past, look where they come from, and just say, okay, this person you believe should be Canadian, or that person shouldn't be Canadian. So I'll give you a very, very specific example. My example. My family's been here for 400 years, give or take, between 300 and 400 years on my father's side, same on my mother's side. I'm married to a first-generation Italian. So my wife was born here in Canada. Her mother was born here, but her father comes from Italy. Like, he came here when he was 25 years old type of deal. He's 70 now. But he's definitely from Sicily. He's an Italian. I have a 5-month-old with my wife. So first, is my wife in your platform, is my wife Canadian? Is my son Canadian? And if they are not Canadian, what should happen to them? Like, should they be deported? Should they go back to a country that they never grew up in? That's the part I don't understand. So if you guys can explain that to me, I think that would make your beliefs, at least what your system's based on, your policies are going to be based on, clear to everybody out there that don't know you guys.
Okay, so that's a fair reframing there, Nico, because there's 3 people on this panel who are concerned and questioning exactly what does this mean. Like, is there such a thing as a distinct line, or is it a little bit more gray than that? Daniel?
Yep. Yeah. I think this is a great example to work off of. So I just like we used kind of Jason's family as an example. I think your family poses a very similar situation, Nico.
Yep.
I believe your wife is Italian. I know she was born here, but she was born here to 2 Italian parents. Regardless of where she's born, like, she is ethnically Italian. And as such, your children are half Canadian and half Italian. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just but we think after generations of them pushing this kind of post-national values-based concept of what a Canadian is, it's very important that a political entity comes into the discourse like Dominion Society has and puts our foot down and says, no, we know what a Canadian is and what a Canadian isn't. We're done with the gaslighting. We're done with this kind of post-nationalism. Nico's Canadian. Nico's wife is Italian. Their kids half Canadian, half Italian. This is common sense. And that being said, as I mentioned already, our remigration plan is not based on ethnicity. Like, we're not advocating for the breaking up of families. Again, I believe that the only way to assimilate into a nation is intergenerationally through intermarrying. So while your child is only half Canadian, if he goes on to have children with more Canadians, they will be 3/4 Canadian, and as such, over generations, you really marry into the family, so to speak, or merge into the nation. But like, our remigration plan, it starts with closing the doors and imposing a complete moratorium on immigration. It starts with turning off the taps of all these social programs, like the interim federal health program and all these subsidies that go towards housing for asylum claimants and all these social programs that prop up people that shouldn't be here. So turning off the taps, closing the doors, and incentivizing people to leave is really the first stage. We want to our foundational goal is to preserve Canadians as the majority in Canada, and we do that through this 10-point plan. That doesn't mean we're going to round up everyone who wasn't born here and send them back. That means we have a 10-point plan to reverse the flows of more recent migration plans in order to maintain Canadians as the majority and to maintain our identity as a nation as a result. I hope that's a bit clearer. I know it's kind of confusing because we take a very hard stance on what a Canadian is, and then people assume that we want to remove everyone that doesn't meet this definition. And it's not quite that simple. We think it's necessary to be clear about our terms, but we do have a more nuanced plan that follows adjustments of policy and would be consistent with Canadian constitutional law. Now, to go back to Tiana and Jeff,
no, but hold on, Daniel. Before you address Diana, I want to be very clear because I don't feel that you're answering my question at all. It's one thing to, I think I understand what you believe is what a Canadian is. I get it. But like you, by your own standard, you're not Canadian. So
no, I'm half Canadian.
So why are you deciding what a Canadian is? And second, what should happen to you? Like what? Because technically my wife is half. She's half Canadian. My son would be 3/4 if I go by what your definition is. But what should happen to them? This is the part I don't understand, because it's fine. We can agree to disagree what a Canadian is, whatever. That part we can argue and define all we want. Okay. But what do you think should happen to people like you, people like my wife, people like my son, people like Jason's family? Should they stay here? Should they have to leave? Are they not real citizen? They don't get to vote? That's the part I don't understand. Like, what are we doing with the people that are not really Canadian by your definition?
And to throw a little bit of confusion in there, because I do want to expand my definition too there, Daniel. My wife is born in Nigeria, but to Lebanese parents, third generation Lebanese parents. So is she Lebanese Canadian, Lebanese Nigerian Canadian? Like, how many hyphens are we throwing in there? And if she has to go back to her homeland, as you put it, is it Lebanon, where she's never been? 3 generations haven't been there and has no roots there. So I was going to throw that little monkey wrench in there because I think these nuances matter, because this is where people get defensive. Like, I would be defensive if you said my wife has to go back to her homeland. Well, what's her homeland? Is it Nigeria or is it Lebanese or Lebanon, using your definition?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to break down people's ethnicities blindly. I don't know these people. I can just go off the information that's being provided.
Fair.
As I said, we have a 10-step remigration plan, and I don't think it would impact either of your families. I'd welcome you, and I'd be happy to break it down. It will take, I would have to monopolize the call for the next kind of 20 minutes to break down each of these stages because it is a complicated plan. But we offer policies like closing the door, a total moratorium on immigration, cutting down birthright citizenship, which is right now an incredibly liberal policy in Canada. Anyone that has a child in Canada is given citizenship immediately, even if it's to a tourist or an illegal or any group like that. And it's being gamed. That we have these anchor babies that are used to chain migrate family members. So we believe that we should bring our Canada in line with most Western countries around the world and make it so that you have to have at least one parent that's a citizen in order to pass that citizenship on to the child. I also think that they should retroactively impose these rules and crack down on anyone who was manipulating the system and taking advantage of birthright citizenships to bring over citizenships. I believe those should be annulled because they were a game of the system. We believe in rejigging the kind of incentive structures, cutting down on these social programs that are supporting migration that shouldn't be here. Once these taps are turned off, I believe a lot of people will just leave because they're just here to take advantage of free government money. Going further, we do believe, in bumping up the CBSA and enforcement agencies in order to go through with mass deportations of these groups. Like, we just don't have the capacity to remove all the illegals in our country right now. There's like roughly 500,000 illegals according to official estimates. There's another 500,000 asylum claimants, most of which are probably illegitimate. We do not have the capacity to remove these people from the country. So, there's another major concrete step. We believe in putting forward what is called a voluntary repatriation program. This would look like the government offering financial assistance and logistical assistance to help people return to their country. For example, Trump did this. He offered free plane tickets to people to return to their home countries. Other countries have, like Sweden and Denmark, have offered financial incentives to the tune of $10,000 to $20,000 for people to return to their home countries in return for giving up their citizenship. But we also believe in stripping people of permanent residency and even naturalized citizenship in some cases, because there are specifically groups that are compromising Canada's national security and social cohesion. So we see groups, acting in favor of foreign gangs. We like the Bishnoi gang, which is an Indian gang that was just named as a terrorist entity in Canada. We see the Chinese Communist Party operating police stations within our border to enforce foreign laws within our lands. Like, I don't care if these people are permanent residents or if they're citizens. Like, these people are actively working against Canada's national interests and so in national security, and they should be stripped of their citizenship and sent back to their countries as a result. So these are the kind of things that I'm looking to address. Like, these are the kind of groups. Criminals. We have this two-tier justice system where criminals who might have permanent residency or on a track to permanent residency are given lesser sentences. We see 2 months minus a day in order to see their citizenship or their permanent residency or their track to permanent residency preserved. This is absurd. Any person that comes here, whether they're on a work permit, a study permit, or whatnot, if they're committing crimes, they've proved that they do not belong in Canadian society and should be sent back. So these are the kind of groups that we want to target. People who are actively not fitting into Canadian society. I'm not looking to break up families and get rid of people that are integrating effectively into Canadian society, like your spouses and your children, both you, Nico and Jason. These are successful stories of immigration, but we have to realize the radical situation that Canada's in. Literally foreign interference, foreign gangs, international crime, like even petty crime, sexual assaults and this international kind of auto theft that's going on. Like, there are so many groups, massive groups of people that often reside or have roots in very specific handful of countries which source the majority of Canadian immigrants. Like, these are the kind of groups that need to be targeted and remigrated. And as a result, we will adjust the demographics of Canada and ensure that Canadians remain the majority in this country. But people get very laser focused on these kind of edge cases. Like, of course, there's going to be stipulations put in place so that we're not breaking up families. Like, that's not the name of the game. Obviously, your spouse is not the problem in the greater immigration crisis that's going on in Canada. And I think it's rather disingenuous to assume that that's what we're targeting. I hope that's a better answer. I would like to address some of the weird things that Tiana and Jeff kind of threw out there earlier. But I'm happy to drill down on this one topic if that's not clear for Jason and Nico.
Okay, so I just want to kind of push back just a little bit. It's not disingenuous when we don't understand. So it's very generous when I'm asking these questions, because it's not that I think you're coming after my family. I just kind of want to clarify that. So on that note, just wanted to respond to that. I do want to go to Greg and then Jeff and then Tiana again, so we can keep this conversation going. And when I go to Greg, I just want to highlight two things. Just recently, the Liberal Party is pushing out there that they're deporting 400 people a week, which is about 20,000 a year. And if Daniel's numbers are correct, 500,000 illegal, 500,000 illegitimate, let's just use that number for what it is, 1 million. Even if they turned off the tap today, that'd be 50 years to deport that amount of people. So they clearly are not going to be on a schedule that actually makes this happen. And I also want to highlight recently here in Alberta, the Alberta Next panel recommended that Alberta step up its immigration policies to go ahead and remove people that are Daniel's talking about. Danielle Smith has announced that she wants to bring this to a referendum to Alberta to go ahead and start enforcing a lot more immigration or de-immigration or re-immigration type of policies to discourage people from coming here, which I'm sure is a couple of the items that Daniel highlighted. For example, cutting off social services to non-citizens. Like, that's one of the things that are on the table here in Alberta now. So this is not radical at all. Like, your first few items that Daniel listed sounds pretty reasonable. In fact, Canada's starting to do it on a very small scale, and Alberta's talked about doing it on an even larger scale. So with those two things in mind, throw the table to you, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, so much has been said, but I guess it's a very common sense thing. Trump has been talking about it. It's a growing movement in Europe. It's, like I said, any self-respecting nation is going to promote remigration. It's kind of a no-brainer. And yeah, respectfully, what about my wife? What about my friend? I don't know respectfully, I don't know where this insecurity is coming from, but let's look at the actual context. Bill C-3 recently passed, which changed the citizenship laws, and they gave any naturalized citizen, now they can give their offspring Canadian citizenship, even if they haven't been here, even if they don't speak English, even if there's no background checks. Like, right now, the powers that be are changing, circumscribing the definition of a Canadian to create a bunch of people in India now being Canadian citizens. They can now come and take advantage of our healthcare system, all of our social services. Who knows how it could be scammed? That just happened a few weeks ago. That's outrageous. Everyone should be outraged by that. That's the context we're in. And as Daniel was saying, like the political will to deport illegals, to deport criminals, terrorists, like that doesn't exist in Canada right now. It's because we don't have a political climate where Canadians respect themselves and respect the actual nation of Canadians. So we've talked about remigration, we've talked about what a Canadian is, but the sort of like vibe and undertone of Dominion society is Canadians need to respect themselves. Or if you're an immigrant to Canada or a citizen, you want people to respect the Canadian people, the Canadian nation, to, be an actual country where people respect the laws. Because right now that's not the case. Right now we're getting, dominated by all sorts of foreign groups, foreign ethnic groups, foreign religious groups who are applying pressure to Ottawa in various ways. We saw someone cross the floor from the Conservative Party. I can't believe the guy that looks like a Chinese spy crossed the floor. What are his interests for the Conservative Party, for conservative values? Or is this something that's maybe interest in China? I don't know. But this is an ongoing problem of foreign interference. We only hear a tiny bit about it in the news. Who knows how bad it actually is? And, just to kind of address the civic nationalists who might say, well, anyone who has a Canadian citizenship, I'm a Canadian citizen too. We're all one happy big family, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't really work, because if a Indian national comes and they have their interest of helping Indians, they're going to obviously raise their hand and be like, of course I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm a Canadian citizen just like you. And then they're going to get closer to levers of power in the House of Commons, and then they're going to circumscribe the rules to benefit Indians. And now there's 100,000 more people who are now Canadian citizens. You see how that works? Like, we need to stop being naive, and kind of part of the undertone message or sort of consequence of Dominion society is Canadians need to take their own side. And we need to start by defining, what a Canadian is, or at the very least, people who are here who respect that and want to maintain that. Because there's a reason many immigrants came here. There's a reason a lot of people came here and enjoyed Canada. If you can appreciate that, and if you want to protect that, then it would only make sense to support the Dominion society in our remigration plan. Because if you look at it, like Daniel said, it's not based on race. It's based on the most recent damage done by Trudeau. There's also kind of like an undertone of Trudeau Senior, of things that we would also want to clean up in a way, especially kind of like philosophically in terms of the liberalism that we've all accepted. But it's almost more based on recency. Like who gets targeted first. It's the most recent damage. We've all seen the graph of how many people we've welcomed into this country. Like that's kind of the obvious damage that I think everyone wants to address. And I did make a video kind of addressing the haters of Dominion Society. And I asked 3 simple questions. Number 1, would you agree that Trudeau has helped radically transform this country with the kind of radical multiculturalism and the mass immigration? Yes. Okay. Do you want it? Question number 2, do you want a solution to that problem? Okay. Assuming it's yes. Is actually presenting a solution, is that racist? Because we're presenting a solution at Dominion Society and everyone's trying to call it racist or trying to call us authoritarians. And it's like, okay, so I guess we're not going to solve the problem then, right? But, I'm excited because Dominion Society is new and we're kind of going through this kind of butting heads with people who are kind of flailing around. Oh my God, is my wife going to be deported? But we're happy to have these conversations and kind of quell any concerns. But I think we're going to see this pick up in popularity as you were saying, Jason.
Yeah, and I can speak for myself on this one. The insecurity comes from lack of information and understanding. And that's why we do these kind of shows. And this is why I appreciate you guys coming on to help break it down and explain it.
Just to push back on that, Daniel doesn't have the power to deport anybody. I don't have the power to deport anybody. More likely in the actual Canada environment we're in, we're more likely to get charged with hate speech or something for even talking about this stuff. Like if we're going to be honest about the situation we're in, you know what I mean? Yep. That's kind of why I think it's a little different.
Yeah. And I certainly don't think that you guys are going to be the ones that pull up the boats and fill it up and ship it off. But your entire mission is to drive conversation, to drive policy, to drive results. So there is a clear path to that happening, but you specifically won't be the ones doing it. But pushing that idea forward, which could turn into policy, which could turn into action, is why.
And it's not just the policy; it's to build the self-respect of Canadians, to build the political will, to be like, yeah, we should be immediately deporting criminals. We should be immediately deporting people who are here illegally. Because right now, I'm sorry, and we've seen it on the call already. There's a sort of attitude of well, we can't offend any immigrants. We can't offend any foreign groups, and it's like that needs to die, guys.
Oh, hold on, Greg.
Yeah.
Who said that?
I kind of said that. So I'm actually going to agree with him on that one, because what I said is it's difficult when they feel isolated, and how do we talk to them so they don't feel isolated? So I actually did say that, but that wasn't kind of what I meant, though. I meant I think it's important to still be able to talk to them. So, and that's why I wanted to highlight my insecurity, which was due to a lack of information. And that's why this conversation is important. So hopefully I addressed that.
But hold on, I just want to push back a tiny bit here, because my question has nothing to do with insecurities. I'm trying to understand. That's it. It's plain and simple. I'm a fact-based person. I want to understand what people think before I can make my opinion known or base my opinion on something. There's no better than the 2 founders of an organization to answer questions, right? I don't think we could have picked the 2 best people to answer this, so I will ask questions. But it has nothing to do with insecurities, because at the end of the day, man, I agree with most of the stuff you guys are talking about. If you commit a crime, you should get the fuck out of here. If you're leeching off the system, get the fuck out of here. I think we agree on probably 80% or 90% of your platform I probably agree with. The only part that I wanted definition is what I asked for, because we can't say that it's an irrelevant conversation. 2 people out of 6 right now on this single panel are in the situation that I was describing. So brushing it off like it's irrelevant, it's not irrelevant. Because again, I agree with you guys at probably 80% of what you guys say. I'll just throw 80 out there. But I probably agree with 80% of what you guys believe in, because I've been talking about this for years too. I'm just not affiliated. It's just my personal opinion. And immigration should work in the favor of Canada, not the other way around. It's not our fucking job to become a third world country, because that's what happens when you import a third world country. You become a third world country, and that's what the fuck we're seeing right now. You cannot have open borders and be a social welfare state at the same time. It does not work, and Canada is the perfect example for this. So that's why I was asking those questions, and I'm sure this is a question that other people are asking. So let's not call them irrelevant or try to brush them off. They're legitimate questions, but I'll shut up on that point and just, Jason, you can go to the next one. That was all I wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
Well,
To defend Greg and I just a little bit.
I was about to.
It does seem like you guys are kind of implying that we have some sort of hidden agenda, and we've been very clear from the very
I was
start.
implying that.
And
I wasn't actually, Daniel. Again, I wasn't.
No.
I was asking the question because I wasn't. I don't know you
Yeah.
guys, so I'm asking a question.
But even like I responded to Jason's question, and I very clearly said we were not interested in deporting his wife, and then you said, I don't understand. Are you going to deport my wife? And like, obviously, this is going to apply to both of you. And like, we've been very focused since I defined remigration at the start of this call. Like, I've been very clear that we're talking about people that are criminals and illegals and asylum claimants and people leeching off the system and people actively working against our national security and social cohesion. And like, very obviously, I mean, I don't know your wives, but I can safely assume that they don't fall into any of the groups that I'm saying. And there's no hidden agenda. Our whole agenda is on our website. And just to address Jeff, like, and Tiana, like, you guys are like shadow boxing against people that aren't in this call. Like, you bring up Alex Transplender.
No, I brought up Greg.
He's not here to defend himself. Why attack him? You keep bringing up, everyone's obsessed with Jews. The only people who have brought up Jews on this call are Tiana and Jeff, not the Dominion Society.
Have you read the comment section? Have you read your own comment section? Maybe you should, and then you're going to realize where that came from.
I'm busy on this call. I am very clearly, you guys are the ones that are obsessed with Israel and Jews.
Also, fuck that Josiah guy. He likes dick in his ass. Josiah likes dick in his ass.
I'll get to you guys in a moment.
Don't let them drag you into their shit, Tiana. Don't.
I pointed to a
honestly,
video
fuck all of them. Like, fuck all of these guys who like listen to this shit. It's like a closed chamber thing with a bunch of retards, and yeah, it's kind of fucking annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason why we didn't put the comments on the screen. It's because those don't represent the people on this screen. If I could turn off comments for all of us, I would, because the conversation's here.
Jeff says that he thinks we have a secret agenda or something.
Well, Jeff's next, so I'm just going to let Daniel tie that up, and then we're going to Jeff to respond to that because it's fair. Because Jeff did bring up Greg, and Jeff did say there was a secret agenda. So we'll get to Jeff right next. Daniel, can you tie up what you're finishing there?
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty much it. Like, I would appreciate if we discuss the people, like, our platform and our ideas, not just jumping off to random anons in the comment section who are often awful in all sorts of different ways. I'm sure we all experience this in different axes. But if we are pivoting to Jeff next, I'd really appreciate if he could define terms like wokeness, woke right, or I guess you said you don't like it.
No, woke right's out. Now it's Groyper. Now that's the new.
Yeah, Groyper. Like, I don't know. I'm really not sure what a lot of these terms mean because they're used so broadly. Like, I see wokeness personally. I see it as just a kind of now a basket term of like everything that the kind of right disagrees with. Like, climate change is thrown in there, and transgender stuff is thrown in there, and some immigration stuff is like, I don't see it as a coherent thing. So people just like, so please be clear about what you mean when you're talking about woke right or wokeness in general. And then what are Groypers? Like, I know they're supporters of Nick Fuentes, but is that a political ideology to you? Like, you say like the PPC is infested with Groypers. Like, I don't think Alex Cargill is a Groyper. Like, I've seen him criticize Nick Fuentes and talk about how he doesn't like him. So like, is Alex Cargill a Groyper in your view?
Hold on. Imagine a fucking retard, like, a fight between a bunch of like influencers, and then Alex being like, I'm so woke, I'm going to like put my opinion in on which, influence. They're all fucking trying to distract you from the real problem, which is digital IDs and the elites trying to basically put you into a digital prison. And you guys are all going to fight each other over skin color, over religion, over who's more Canadian. What does a Canadian mean? You are all going to get imprisoned by the digital ID and the elites through CBDCs and UBI. And that's what I'm trying to say. Is everybody's fighting? Everyone's fighting like some Exactly. Some people are trying to fight retardation, and we're all going to get fucked by digital ID, CBDCs, and these elites, and we're going to get imprisoned. And that's what I'm frustrated with. No one gives a fuck what a Canadian, what an American, what a European means. We are all going to get bent over, and we're going to get fucked by digital ID, CBDCs, UBI, and that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, I'm not born in Canada. You guys are probably way more Canadian than I am, but I'm trying to fucking warn the retards, even in the comment section, these inbred motherfuckers, that we are literally all going to get imprisoned. They're going to use these illegal immigrants to put in digital ID so they can be like, oh, we don't know who's a real Canadian and who's like a fucking immigrant. Well, you can kind of tell, like, via skin color, but that's not what's going to happen. We're all going to get imprisoned by digital ID, UBIs, and fucking CBDCs. And that's what I'm trying to, like, fucking get everybody to, like, and everyone's like, oh, you're so emotional. Oh my God, it's a woman getting all loud. Fuck you, fuck your inbred fucking mouth, fuck your mom, whoever had you. The best part of you ran down your mom's leg. I don't even give a shit anymore. We are all going to get imprisoned the same. So listen up, everybody. White, brown, fucking black, purple. I don't give a fucking shit. Try and see through the fucking bullshit that is going to happen. That is all I'm trying to say. I don't even give a shit. I'll go out and live out in the middle of the woods. I'm used to camping. I don't fucking give a shit. Most of these fucking losers out here are like, oh my God, quit yelling, my sensitive Canadian ears. Fuck you, man. Fuck you and your pussy ass beliefs. We are all going to get imprisoned by the digital AI gods. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Obviously, we fundamentally disagree. We don't think the driving problems in society are digital ID and this whole narrative. We think that, as Greg put it at the beginning of the call, the existential problem with the Canadian nation is mass immigration. And we believe that's the number one issue. So you see a problem with us getting organized around a set of ideas that you think is not the priority. That's fine. This is a panel on discussion on remigration. So this isn't a great topic for you, because we just fundamentally disagree on the priorities here. Like I think immigration.
Let me just get in here, because I will come to you guys. Yeah, I will come to you. I promise. Nico, we're going to have to do an episode on who's the real enemy, because she brought up a lot of good concerns there, and I think that will be another good panel. And I believe Tiana will join, because she definitely.
Oh, I will. Can I just say Lee Stavey is a fucking loser? Anyway.
Don't even know who that is. And I absolutely think that what I'm going to try and do is bring us back to the remigration, because I want to get to Jeff. Because Jeff, and one of the happy things that we're having here is some of the conversations Jeff wants to have is with the people here. So I want to kind of get back to that in our last half an hour. But I do think we should have a Who is the Real Enemy show. So if you're all watching now, stay tuned, because we're going to get into that one, which will include digital IDs, WF, yada, 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 all that stuff too. Jeff. All right, so you kind of been called out a little bit here on and asked what the definition you brought to the table means, and to kind of open that up. And you've been very patient, so let's throw it to you now, there, Jeff.
So first of all, let me clarify. Like, I threw out a bunch of terms there because those are terms that are kind of floating around in the zeitgeist. But the term that I use is residually woke. I don't think that woke right is a good term at all, because like I said, I mean, the woke are collectivist, totalitarian, and Marxist. So there's nothing right-wing about them. It's an oxymoronic term. I think what we're dealing with.
Do you think collectivism is always bad?
Yeah, I do. I think. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think that it really appeals to the darker elements of human nature, especially tribalism, and that is probably something that we should overcome. Politics is tribal by nature. I'd refer you to a book by Amy Chua called Political Tribes. And it is how communists end up defeating us, really. It's what happened in Venezuela. I mean, they played the identity politics with Hugo Chavez because there's a white economically dominant minority in Venezuela. And people tend to abhor, tribes broadly tend to abhor market dominant minorities, like, say, for example, the Jews. So they used race, Hugo Chavez being, I think, part black, part indigenous, and a lot of people in Venezuela were. So he would get up on stage and he would say, like, my skin is brown and my lips are big, and people would just kind of relate to that, and it retribalizes things. And now it's a communist shithole in Venezuela. So I think that identity politics is well, I'm against identity politics, and I think that therein lies damnation when we start embracing this stuff. And so that's what concerns me, I guess, when I see something like Dominion Society, is if we're embracing identity politics. I don't know. You haven't said that you are, but if that's the route that we're going, I'd say therein lies damnation. Like, we got to rise above it. And that's how we win. And in terms of, how we separate wheat from chaff, I like profiles. In Afghanistan, we call them FAMs, fighting age males. That's what we were looking for. And I would say that if we're going to profile, the good ones and the bad ones, or where we need to start, it would be, I make the distinction between mass immigration and managed immigration. There were a lot of years when, a little bit of immigration was working well, but it has to be very carefully managed, especially when we're dealing with problematic populations. I don't know. I make a lot of, I do talk about race, by the way. I talk about a lot of differences between races, because when we're talking about massive populations, we need to look at trends, and we need to look at those kinds of trends for things like profiling when we're bringing people into the country. So that's a matter of national security. But once we get people into the country, we can kind of dispense with all that stuff and go on with the overcoming tribalism and leading the way to the next stage of the Enlightenment. So, and in terms of the woke, residual wokeness is the term that I use. Not that anybody knows what it is or anything like that, but yeah, I disagree with James Lindsay on a few things. It's maybe a little too nuanced for this conversation, but obviously woke right is an oxymoronic term, and I think a lot of people that are finding, say, the PPC, for example, are basically leftists that were just against the mandates. And so they're dragging a lot of Marxist baggage with them. And that is kind of the key to wokeness, is that it is Marxist. It's culturally Marxist. So I would say that put it simply, like I did a whole tweet thread on this, or a few of them or something. So, but to put it simply, I would say that the woke right are analogous to third wave feminists. It's just that you replace the global patriarchy with Zionists and women with the white man, and you have the woke right, for lack of a better term, the residually woke, and they lead with a sense of victimhood, and it's a matter of this oppressor versus oppressed dichotomy, and it's fundamentally Marxist through and through. So those are the guys, and they engage in the cancel culture and the witch hunts, and they deploy a lot of the woke tactics with the Darvo and the gaslighting and stuff like this. So, we could go on and on about tactics and nuance, but what I would say really kind of defines wokeness is the cultural Marxism. And by the way, that's not my term. That's just some terms that are out there. I was saying whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about cultural Marxists, but I say residually woke. I hear other people saying Groyper. It's not really something that I use a lot. I think it's kind of a funny term. I might throw it around in a kind of funny way. But if we're talking about this like seriously, I would say residually woke is a better term.
Okay, so fair enough. So Daniel, did that answer your question? And Greg, we'll come to you right after Daniel.
No, I think that frames it much better. And like I'm happy to I think this kind of gets down to the fundamental disagreement that Jeff and I have. We haven't spoke a lot. I've seen some clips of you talking about me and the Dominion Society with some other people, but it seems that by and large, Jeff and I agree on most policy on this topic. We could kind of hammer into the brass tacks point by point of our remigration plan. But listening to Jeff now, and I've heard him, I follow him on Twitter and I've seen him talk otherwise. I think we'd agree 80-90% of the way through. I think the biggest disagreement that we have is definitely philosophical. And it does come down to this kind of collectivist versus individualist philosophy. And I do consider myself an identitarian. I do consider myself a collectivist. And I think that engaging in politics, people like Jeff, I find, come from a very idealistic perspective. I think he even kind of got to it in his previous statement where he said, we need to go further towards enlightenment. And to do so, we must be, the implication being we must be individualist, we must be universalist. And that's just that's not how I see politics working in practice. In practice, democracy is very much an exercise in competing collectives to see who can win. Those collectives form into political parties. They form into advocacy groups around different lines in order to push different sets of ideas. And I think operating from a kind of individualist philosophy is just a losing position. Even if you think that's the best in a kind of utopian idealist sense, that everything is equal behind a veil of ignorance or whatnot, the reality is the individualist is always going to lose to the other groups that are willing to act as collectives. And that's really been a fundamental problem that's led to the transformation of Canadian society. Canadians, heritage Canadians, are very individualist by nature. And as a result, as we imported more people, as we allowed them to maintain their foreign languages and foreign religions through this state-enforced multiculturalism, we created these massive voting blocks that act in more collectivist natures. A lot of them come from countries where collectivism is the standard kind of organizing philosophy. And as a result, we've been completely overwhelmed by these more organized voting blocks. And we see this through registered, lobbying groups, through advocacy groups, how they infiltrate, they practice entryism into political parties, like we've seen the kind of Khalistan movement do. All of these things, the World Sikh Organization, their infiltration in the Conservative Party, and so on. The reality of the situation is collectivism will always defeat individualism. So we need to get organized and we need to collectivize in order to stop our society from slipping away and transforming further. Because really, it's the next kind of 5 to 15 years that are critical, or else Canada, the nation, Canada, the people, is quickly going to disappear. Because without remigration, we're going to be a minority in this country within the next decade, and only getting smaller and smaller. So unless we get organized, unless we normalize these ideas of nationalism, of remigration, and force them to be adopted by political parties, and to protect the ethnic continuity of the Canadian people within our homelands, it's just not going to be a starter. So you can try and do this by pushing kind of individualism, but I think that fails to address this bedrock issue, because really liberalism, this philosophically, results in a justification of multiculturalism, results in a justification of mass immigration, because it views people from a universalist perspective. It views people as interchangeable economic units. That's not how I view things. I view things in a more hierarchical fashion, a more exclusionary fashion, where not anyone can be a Canadian, where we need to protect distinct Canadian interests. So I really do think that's the kind of core of the disagreement between Jeff and I. This kind of I don't know.
You're on the left.
I'm not on the left. I consider myself.
If you're a collectivist, you're on the left. That's the fundamental difference. The left is collectivist. The right is individualist.
That's right. Is literally what I was about to get at. Because really, if we're being philosophically thorough, the political spectrum is not just a line, right? It's a series of axes competing, and you can take things on just the individualist to collectivist axes. But I think the far more important philosophical axis is universalism to hierarchy, egalitarianism to hierarchy, with egalitarianism being on the left and hierarchy being on the right. And then from my perspective, Jeff, you're actually a leftist. You're the liberal. because you accept this egalitarian universalism, you accept liberalism.
I was in the military for 20 years. I definitely endorse hierarchy.
Philosophical disagreement is between left liberals and right liberals. This is the post-war consensus, right? Liberalism won the day, and since then, all philosophical discussions have been between left liberals and right liberals. That's why I don't think Pierre Poilievre's a conservative. I think he's a liberal. He's a right liberal. Carney and the capital liberals are the left liberals. But I see you as a left liberal. I don't see you as as on the right, really, because you're not willing to grapple with the far more important philosophical distinction, which is between egalitarianism and hierarchy.
Right, but I am.
So let's go to Jeff on that one.
Yeah, I do endorse hierarchy. Like I never said otherwise. I was in the military for 20 years, and this is, I mean, we're a social hierarchical primate species. This is how we're best suited to function. And there's a disparity of IQ across populations. So we need to build hierarchies that appeal to the better angels of our nature, and let the most capable people rise to the top. Like there's nothing I find to be incompatible with individualism in that regard, or even being on a team, as you're saying. Like I can be a team player, but still an individualist politically, and we do need to organize, certainly, but that doesn't mean that I abandon my individualist principles, namely that I would promote individual rights first. I favor individual rights, not collective rights, because when we adopt collective rights, as we have in the Trudeau years and perhaps a little bit before that, we tend to re-tribalize as a society, and it drives by balkanization. So I would say that the best way to protect a group is to protect every individual within it. And we're all better off with taking that approach, because when you're in a collective, you're either an asset or a liability to the collective. And that's why I say it's like the extreme left is totalitarian, the extreme collectivist is totalitarian. And you will either conform or be run roughshod over, or cast out, witch hunted, this kind of thing. So I don't find that leads to better outcomes for humans. We've seen collectivism in the form of communism give us the bloodbath of the 20th century and beyond. I think the more we stay away from that, the better off, the better outcomes we can expect for humans. And also, like, so what is the deal? Why the fixation on Israel? Because you said that I was obsessed with Jews because I brought up a video where Greg was talking about Jews. I'm not. So
let's go to Greg on that one, because I think that's fair. And the only thing that comes to mind on this is there's no I in team, but there is an I in win. Greg, go ahead. He asked what the fixation on Israel is.
I don't know what tweet you're referring to, but I'll talk about collectivism and then get to that topic in a second. I guess I'm curious, like, when it comes to something like the trucker convoy, for example, one of the only reasons that was successful is because they collectivized around opposing mandates, right?
They organized.
Right.
And then there were people who came to the fore who had a little bit.
Maybe I don't necessarily disagree where collectivism can be bad, but if you look at the pitiful situation of Canada, it's because collectivized groups are out competing the actual Canadian people. I kind of alluded to it earlier. Different foreign ethnic groups. Daniel alluded to it. The World Sikh Organization. There's plenty of different foreign kind of organizations who are asserting their influence on the political landscape, and they're being effective. So it's like, if we continue to tell ourselves that collectivism will never work, it's like, well, it's working for these groups, actually to the detriment of the collective of Canadian people who have been here, right? So it's like, it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot if you keep telling yourself that collectivism is never going to work. And on that note, I actually really admire Zionists. They are probably one of the best at collectivizing to accomplish their goals. The Jews look out for Jews. There's the World Jewish Congress. You got CEJA in Canada. you know, that they are looking out for the interests of Jews and for that in Israel and abroad. Like they are very much collectivists, are they not? I don't know. And I would, you know, it's not a dig at them. I think they're actually very effective at it. And that's kind of what I want for Canadians. I want the same kind of attitude for Canadians. Like if you look at the immigration laws in Israel, it's very hard to immigrate to Israel. If you look at the parliament in Israel, there's no dual citizenships allowed in the parliament. You cannot be a parliamentarian or a, you know, politician in Israel if you have two passports. We allow that in Canada. And, you know, we've talked enough about foreign interference already, but that kind of like attitude of the Jewish people and their kind of, I think, collectivizing is actually something that's really served them and for them to kind of accomplish their goals of, like I said earlier, the self-love, the self-preservation, the self-respect. And I think that I simply just want that for the Canadian people.
Okay, so Jeff, what I'm hearing there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but it's not demonizing Israel in any way, shape, or form. He's actually using them as an example of a group that's doing something that's similar to what they're talking about here, but not demonizing them.
I quickly looked back at my tweets, trying to look for what you were talking about. And one of my responses is, so if I'm not on my knees worshiping Jews, then I must be on my knees worshiping Palestinians. So it's like, it looks like you were doing the thing where I criticize Israel or Zionism in some way, and then you accuse me of being a Hamas supporter, which is like...
No, I think he meant your video responding to Wyatt Claypool.
No, I don't know if it was Wyatt Claypool, or I don't think so. I think it was just a promotional video for Dominion Society, and you used Israel as an example of an ethno-state. Are you promoting ethno-state?
But hold on, yeah, I remember that. That's also one of the most well-known ones, right? So when you're talking to a mass of people, you can't say Japan. The people don't really understand that; they don't know. So maybe as an example because it's most well-known.
So this was the One BC video. So you know, the One BC party kind of like imploded or exploded or something
around this issue.
So yeah, sort of around this issue, and something that Brody said was along the lines of, "I don't want that like ethno-nationalism stuff. That's not me." And she has supported Israel in the past, and it's known that the chief of staff at the time, right before the party exploded, Wyatt Claypool, he's an open Zionist. There's another Zionist, and it's like, okay, so Zionism, is that not ethno-nationalism for a foreign country in Israel? So it's like One BC is allowed to be an ethno-nationalist for a foreign country, but you can't be an ethno-nationalist for Canada, where you live, where your political party operates. Isn't that kind of weird?
Okay, so I remember that post because I had Daniel Brody on right before.
But I want to hear Jeff's response to that.
Yeah, I'm sending it to Jeff right now.
Well,
because I remember that. Yeah.
I guess it all depends on whether you believe the Holocaust happened or not.
What?
Yeah, I mean that's
what?
Yeah, that.
What do you?
I think we shifted gears quickly there, Jeff. I'm not sure if that's what he was saying.
Well, I think what I'm saying is the reason
you ran out of cards, eh? You had to play
the reason that they established in the first place is because they were driven out of everywhere else.
Fuck.
Sorry, I can't hear Jeff.
Oh shit! Pardon me. Sorry. Continue.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The reason why they started an ethno-state in Israel, and by the way, there are like 2 million Arabs who live in Israel as well, but the reason why they established a Jewish state was because they'd been driven out of everywhere else, and that wasn't really the case for, I guess, what you guys are calling ethnic Canadians. What is it? Heritage Canadians? I don't know. And you know, I know that essentially just looking around, I'd say I can't say I blame them, because a lot of people are going to need a fallback position if certain current trends continue. You know, I mean, we have Hamas taking over the streets, and it seems like an awful lot of Canadians are turning on Jews. So they need a somewhere to retreat to. You know, so there was a kind of a bona fide occupational requirement for that in the first place.
Well, with that in mind, I don't know if you know anyone who like works for CJA, like, you know, Canadian Institute for Jewish Affairs, but like why wouldn't they support something like remigration? Because as you're saying, like, you know, infiltrating with
probably
anti-Semites, like why wouldn't they want to promote remigration with us to help with that? Because like if that's such a concern.
Well, probably because they're pretty woke, They tend to favor immigration policies, as far as I know. But that seems to be, the ideology that's run shot through like an awful lot of institutions. It's not just CEJA. I mean, we could talk about the university, or I don't know, maybe CBSA for that matter. So this seems to be widespread, and I guess that's what I find so curious about this fixation with Israel and the Jews. Like, how does it fit in to, like, why would you go right to that?
Can I ask a question, Daniel? Sorry, because I'm kind of lost now.
Yeah, like he keeps saying that we're fixated on the Jews, but like literally we're responding to.
Daniel. Jeff, I'm not seeing the fixation that you're talking about, including their website, and I'm not defending them. I'm just trying to compute what's being said here. I'm not seeing a fixation on Jews, and maybe I'm missing it, because all I've seen so far is a comparison on how they do things there. Should be how we do things here is kind of the comparison being made, but I'm not seeing a derogatory or a fixation on it. Did I miss that part? And I would like Jeff to answer that one.
It was when I mentioned Greg's tweet when he was talking about foreign interference from Israel. So,
okay.
So we have a fixation on Jews because once Greg made a video responding to people who publicly described themselves as Zionists, calling out a kind of a double standard that they were presenting. And this one tweet compromises our organization for having a fixation on Jews. It's a very
well. How about we clear the record here, Daniel? Is there a fixation on Jewish people, Zionist, or anything like that on your platform? That's just
no. Jews are not referenced in any ways. They're really not a focus, and I think that they're much more a focus for like American commentators. I don't think Jews are. Even as an organized voting bloc, are nearly as problematic in Canada as others. Like I think probably like groups like organized Khalistanis, organized Muslims are much larger.
Muslims
problem.
or Islamics?
Sure. Yes. But like even the state policy of Canada right now is to recognize Palestine. Like you can see that Jewish influence even within the Canadian state is not particularly significant. It's not a big concern for Canadian nationalists or our organization. It does seem to be a big focus for Jeff. I'm not sure why.
Well, I can tell you.
Maybe he's looking for clarification around that.
And like he accused Greg of Holocaust denial because like he.
No, I wasn't accusing anybody of anything. I was just kind of saying, like, it seems like we're overlooking the fact that Druze were pogromed like all over Europe and in Russia, and there was.
But that wasn't the subject matter, though.
No, I know, but why is there an ethno-state in Israel? I mean, that's why.
No, I don't think they were really asking why. They were asking why can they do one, but we can't. But the ethno-state portion of it.
That was why.
And did I miss that?
No,
I get it.
That was why they did.
And Dominion Society's why for Canada is, well, we're being erased. We're going to lose our identity. Why
we're going to become a minority in this country within the next 10 years unless we transform our immigration policy and really change our philosophy generally. Because right now the countervailing philosophy in Canada is like a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, the Justin Trudeauism, or you get Pierre Poilievre, anyone from anywhere can be Canadian. Like this is the countervailing philosophy across the political spectrum. So unless we come in and say, no, Canadians are a distinct people and we need to preserve that. And here is a comprehensive remigration plan in order to accomplish that. Unless we take these dramatic steps, Canadians are going to become a minority in Canada, and then who knows where it goes from there. Really, issues like balkanization and tribalization are really only problems in these kind of multi-ethnic, multicultural societies where that can happen. If we were a much more cohesive country with a unified culture, without such a radical breakup of ethnic groups, we wouldn't be like balkanization would not be a big concern. It's a concern given the situation that we're in now. So these are why I think these are priorities. We point to Israel as an example of policies that we can adopt. We point to many countries around the world for policies that we can adopt and repurpose for the Canadian situation. But I wouldn't say we're obsessed with the Jews. I think we're obsessed with Canada.
I don't know about you, Daniel. I don't know much about you. I think this was the first time that we've spoken. Actually, you said we've spoken before. I'm not sure.
No,
but,
we've spoken years ago, Jeff. I was the executive director of the People's Party of Canada. I talked
I remember your emails
about being a candidate in the 2021 election, but you weren't able to because you were still leaving the military at the time.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't remember. Thanks for jogging my memory. But no, I mean, like I'm referencing a specific tweet. Like, if there's anybody out there who's obsessed with Jews, it is Alex Cargill, and he was tweeting at everybody to let them know to ignore me. And Greg was retweeting that. Ignore me because I don't believe this. I don't know what they want me to believe.
This was like over a year ago, right?
One of the goals of today, Jeff, and I think you were on board with this, was to air some of this and actually speak directly to the people. Right.
So let me air it. I'll speak directly to it. It was on the 17th of February, 2025. And you were retweeting Alex Cargill, who is very clearly obsessed with Jews in Israel. And he's telling everybody to ignore me because I am not obsessed with Jews in Israel. And you were retweeting him and saying the Canadian nationalists need to be vigilant of foreign interference, including foreign interference from Israel. And you were talking about me, and that was during the campaign to cancel me as a PPC candidate. So I'm sure you can appreciate why I'd find that.
Well, you're trying to cancel me.
I said it was during the campaign.
If I see something that I agree with or I think they have a point, then I will sometimes retweet it. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think I probably had a point. I stand by most of my tweets. I've been sober for a decade. So maybe in that video, Alex Cargill had a point. And yeah, I mean, as a free speech guy, I would be remiss, Jeff, if I didn't mention the fact that there is speech laws already on the books for Holocaust denial in Canada. They're really pushing for it for the U.S. Across the Western countries. Like, there is no group that has specific speech laws to protect them other than Jews in the Western countries. And again, to their credit, it's because they're collectivizing. It's because they have all these different groups. It's because they're pushing for what their people want. And but as a free speech guy, I find that very kind of annoying. It's like not a good precedent to set. They're trying to do denialism laws for the unmarked graves. They're using the sort of Holocaust denial laws as a premise, and they have basically the same language, and they're trying to port it onto the the Kamloops case, unmarked graves, so you can be a denialist for talking the wrong way about historical facts having to do with Kamloops. So that sets a really, really bad precedent for free speech, Jeff. And I guess it's to protect their people. But again, because we were talking about the collectivization, at least, it's kind of just proves that collectivizing does work around your kind of, ethnic religious group and advocating in the world of politics. They've been successful across the Western world with passing these speech laws to protect Jews or to make sure you don't say the wrong thing about the Holocaust.
And I'll just ask a question of Greg on behalf of Jeff, because Jeff, I went through the same thing. Same group went after me in the PPC because I wouldn't denounce a certain group because I had no reason to denounce anybody, but they wanted me to do that, and I said no. And I do know some of the behind the scenes that were targeting you and me and a couple others. Same group, same people doing it, and I'm sure Jeff or Greg didn't know this. Like, I'm sure he wasn't aware of this cancel attempt on you at the time, and he wasn't supporting it. Greg, I'll let you speak for yourself on that one, but I think that's what sounds like Jeff was upset with that February 17th post of yours.
I don't specifically remember what the post was. I don't think my commentary is really an attack on you. I think it was just kind of like we need to look out for foreign interference. Maybe it's coming from Israel as well. I don't know. Like I would have to look at the actual tweet itself to kind of like justify why I was saying it. But I think I just laid out a pretty clear example of foreign interference across the Western world of how speech laws have been passed to protect a specific group of people. You believe in equality. Do we believe in equality?
How's that foreign interference?
Pardon?
Well, he's just giving an example of groups.
I feel like I brought up a pretty good example of of how Jewish people have managed to pass speech laws across the Western world, specifically to insulate them from criticism, I would argue.
How is that foreign interference?
How is that foreign interference? I mean, it probably wouldn't be too hard to make the argument that these speech laws insulate Bibi Netanyahu, a foreign country, from criticism. So that's pretty good for Israel, not really good for any other country that wants to criticize Israel.
The media has been really critical of Israel, actually, since the war started.
Okay, I think you're kind of...
Okay, I think we've gotten to the point where this can't really go further unless we have a lot more time, which we don't have.
You're a free speech guy, though, right?
Yeah, I'm a free speech guy.
Well, I can say, like, the Holodomor didn't happen. I can say the Great Leap Forward didn't happen. Nobody cares.
Look, I'm not saying that we should have those speech laws on the books. I'm not advocating for speech laws.
The wrong way. It's like, remember when you walked in the bushes and you're like, isn't this absurd? It's just as absurd, man.
Dude, yeah. I never said those speech laws should be on the books. I don't think that.
But he just gave that as an example of interference.
Yeah, I know. But I'm like, that's not foreign interference, though. That's just lobbying.
Okay, Tiana, I'm going to go to Tiana now because I think we're starting to split a hair here because lobbying can be, by some, seen as interference. And then if it's done by a foreign entity, that would be the definition of it. But there's another type of foreign interference where you like get into the government and you do things too. Like foreign interference isn't just a single term. It could actually be used for a lot of interference in many different levels by a foreign entity, I think would be a fair definition. Tiana, I want to come to you. And then there's one more question we have from Nico. And then we've got to wrap it up because I think there's one more piece of this whole conversation which is important, which is the public perception of remigration and how do we work with that so that people can understand it better. And I think part of the conversation here helped, but I would like to directly talk about the marketing of it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to try and stay calm on this one because I get very passionate with like trying to help Canadians. But there's a lot of propaganda and a lot of mind control being put on Canadians from these globalists to try and separate all of us. Right. And so they will use like skin color, religion. So you guys keep saying things like, why is Israel so protected? Why are all of these Muslim countries protected? Because they believe in religion. What is the one thing the West has actually lost throughout the years? It's their ties to God. And it's their ties to Christianity. Yes, we may be Christian countries on paper, but do we actually practice it? No, we don't. Not like Israel, not like these Muslim countries. And religious law will actually help you a lot than like natural laws. And universal laws will actually set us free, but nobody has the balls to actually go forward and use universal laws. That means I'm saying I'm a sovereign being. I don't need IDs. I don't need any of this stuff. Now you're going to get the government after you, right? So the next best thing to use is religious laws, which is what the Mennonites, the Amish, and like all those guys use. And this is why I always say, know the loopholes to the system in order to fuck the system within itself. And a lot of people are like, no, I'm an atheist, but I'm still Christian, but I still want this. I still want rights. You're either a Christian or an atheist. If you're an atheist, you are free to be taken by any other country because you do not believe in one entity. And if you look at the Freemasons and the globalists, the only thing that you need to do is believe in a God or a deity. It doesn't have to be a specific God, and then you're untouchable, and then you can actually get into the cabal and into these Freemasons things, which is why it's really important to learn all of these secret societies, learn theology so that you can actually learn the loopholes in order to protect your own country. So Canada isn't really a country, it's a corporation. Our Charter of Rights isn't really real because nobody signed on to it to make it real. So what's our next goal? Religious rights, which is what the government is trying to take from you with all of these bills that they're putting through. So this is what I'm trying to tell people. If you want to be untouchable like Israel, if you want to be untouchable like these Muslim countries, you need to become religious. You need to believe in Jesus. and you need to become like the Mennonites and the Amish, and then you're going to be untouchable. It's like this loophole in all of these laws. You've got like the laws that they made, then you've got the natural laws, then you've got the universal laws. And if you learn those, and if you learn how like the elites work, then you can learn all of their loopholes so that you can actually navigate all of this shit, and we can actually fight for Canada back. Like, I honestly don't hate Canada. I know I'm very passionate. I know I put a lot of hate out there. I know I put a lot of like, feelings out there, but that's because I want you guys to learn from the mistakes that Yugoslavia made so that you don't get balkanized. I'm Balkan. I know what that means. So that you guys don't fight each other. And you want to know what's keeping the United States together? It's religion, it's Christianity, and it's Jesus. And if only Canada would wake up to that, you guys would be unstoppable. If only Europe would wake up to that, you'd be unstoppable. But they made you an atheist country on purpose. And they told you that feminism and like all of this other shit was like the thing to like bring you happiness. But it was actually the way they can fuck you through the law and through the loopholes. So
Nico, we covered this under the Muslim values or Canadian values topic, which kind of led into this when we covered that with Pastor Arthur Pawlowski, that Christians need to stand up and take this back.
I agree.
So you want to talk about that, and then let's get to that last question as we wrap up here today.
Well, I talk about this stuff almost on a daily. So if you guys want to know my stance on this, you can look at my socials. But God is always the first thing the government tries to replace. There's a reason why they do it. Let's be honest here. That's why they remove it. And Christians need to stand up. This country was based on Christian values. It was made by Christian. And Christians today need to stand up and stop being so lukewarm. Because we've been pussified in believing that being offensive is not good. Yet our God flipped tables and was crucified for his beliefs. So it's time for Christians out there to stand up. But that's a subject. I don't think this is a subject I want to approach on this, because I really want to bring it back to remigration since we're about done. And there's just one more questions I wanted to ask the Dominion guys. And I'm sorry, I'm calling you the Dominion guys. It's just simpler than naming both of you. But the question is about the way that you guys are being portrayed, right? And when I say you guys, is guys like me too. I'm being called racist, xenophobe, all the words in the dictionary, because I believe in Canada too. But the mainstream's calling you racist. They're calling you white nationalists. They're using propaganda to kill the conversation. Like they're trying to avoid. That's what the left mainstream, just the mainstream media as a whole, is very good at doing, is just killing the conversation by insulting people. And as someone that comes from a sales and marketing background, I understand how image and wording is extremely important to raise awareness to your message. So how are you guys going to market your beliefs and policies considering that mainstream is trying to shut you down from the get-go?
Okay, we'll go with Daniel first.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's something that we're very careful about. And really, one of the driving forces behind why we started a separate group with a very different tactic than anything else kind of out there in the political marketplace. It is a controversial space. It is some difficult conversations that need to be had. So we wanted to bring forward a new face, a new organization that could have these very important and careful conversations in a way that was grounded in our history, that was respectful, that was clear, that was professional. So that's really kind of a driving ethos behind everything we do at the Dominion Society. I will say the media hasn't really covered us very much. There's lots of people and anonymous accounts on the internet and so on that try and call us all these names. The coverage we've actually had in the media is very limited, and usually they're very careful not to label us with very many things, because they know most of it can't stick and doesn't hold up to legal scrutiny. I'm
sorry to cut you off, but let me rephrase what I meant. I didn't mean you guys as a whole. I meant the remigration movement as a whole, because that was still the topic of the day. Is I speak about remigration, I'm called a racist right off the bat, because that automatically means I don't like black people, right? This is what I meant by the question.
To tack onto that, Daniel, this was part of the end of the last conversation we had. Was Jeff was concerned that his effort to tackle the subject is being hampered by other groups because of the media, white nationalists, all that kind of stuff, masks, that kind of stuff. So the question to you specifically is, how do you navigate that broader framing while you're trying to do your thing?
I appreciate that context. I wasn't part of that conversation, so I didn't know. The main thing, the main smear the media has kind of thrown at us is they kind of lump us in with other groups. We've been described by the thoroughly discredited and embarrassing organization called the Canadian Anti-Hate Network as the political wing of Diagolon, whatever that means. As far as I understand, Diagolon's a meme and not any real organization, and we're certainly not affiliated with it or any outside groups. We're not the political wing of anything. We're our own independent organization with our own kind of clear kind of moral philosophy and ideas that we promote. So that's where I'd want to start. When it comes to things like masks, I'm not a big proponent of masks in general, and you'll see that during our demonstration.
We're talking about masks for hiding identity, not the COVID stuff.
Double whammy. It works in both cases. I'm not a big fan of masks, but in particular for political reasons. One of our main goals at the Dominion Society is to normalize these ideas, this nationalist worldview, and the concept of remigration. And we do that through kind of three main channels. We do that through our media content, we do that through our intellectual development, and we do that through grassroots activism and demonstrations. And during our demonstrations, during our volunteer efforts, we don't have we have a no mask kind of policy across the board because we believe that masks are kind of counterproductive. They project kind of shame in ideas, or they're a physical demonstration that your ideas are fringe and you might be punished for them or whatnot. And I absolutely understand why some people do wear them. Like we all know the political climate is the way it is, and there's cancel campaigns, and this can threaten people's livelihoods. Like I understand why people choose to wear masks. I just think in our broader goals as an organization, it's to normalize these goals, and these ideas, and really there's no more powerful kind of symbolic way of normalizing it than having normal people, stand up and say, I believe in remigration. And you don't look like a normal person when you're wearing a mask or so on. So we don't really believe in masks as an organization. And we really want to put forward very clear and credible ideas. We're very careful in our social media content and how our ideas are portrayed in videos and so on. We take everything we do very seriously. We show up to events and live streams and so on, dressed professionally with high quality equipment. We put out high quality content that shares our views in effective ways. Maybe sometimes we use some kind of controversial language or humor or so on to get the point across and to kind of reach out to a broader audience and go viral. There is a certain line to play for sure when it comes to things like tweets and short form content like that. But really what we wanted to bring to the nationalist kind of movement at large was an organization that could put forward a very professional face, very clear and professional content, because I think that's really what's necessary to bring this very important policy from the fringes into the mainstream. And we've already seen that happen in foreign countries like across Europe. It's gone from a niche idea to being adopted by it's being adopted by the Freedom Party in Austria. It's being adopted by the Chega Party in Portugal. It's being adopted by the AFD in Germany. There have been successful movements that have been working at this for years now that have pushed it from the fringes into the mainstream, using a lot of the strategies that we're adopting and bringing into the Canadian context. So we're really looking to emulate what these foreign movements have done, as well as what kind of foreign ethnic lobby groups do in Canada or advocacy groups do in Canada. We're kind of looking at these things and making our own kind of hybrid. So we've made this kind of organization, the Dominion Society, that's kind of this hybrid kind of advocacy group, grassroots organization, think tank, media org, into this weird kind of hybrid monster that we think we can use to rapidly accelerate the discussion in Canada. And I think the impact that we've had in the overall political conversation in just the last 5 months since we launched is I think is very obvious. Like now, we just at the end of the year, we have Ezra Levant asking Danielle Smith about her position on remigration. And sure, her answer was soft, but all of a sudden remigration is like the premier of Alberta is being asked about remigration. 1BC blows up because of a philosophical disagreement about nationalism and remigration. Like, it's very obvious the way that we have pushed remigration into the conversation. And I think over the next few months, as we continue to grow, as we continue to ramp up our media content, as our grassroots organization gets stronger and gets online in more cities, that this is just going to be pushed more and more into the mainstream. And you're going to see Polyev and Carney have to react to it. They're going to be asked by journalists. It's going to get more coverage in the media. And I try not to pat myself on the back too much. We have a huge uphill battle. This is just the beginning. But no one was using remigration before I launched the Dominion Society on the 21st and saying we're bringing this into the mainstream. And it's very obvious how this conversation.
Yes, they have. But ask yourself this: why have they allowed re-immigration into Canada? Why have they allowed so many immigrants into Canada, and why did you allow it? Ask yourself that. Why is it certain countries that do not allow immigrants because they stand on it? Why was it allowed in Canada? Yeah, a little bit later, you kind of coined the term, but why was it allowed in Canada, and why has it been taken this so far? Because of psychological operations.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on that at the beginning, and I think there's more to that particular subject, Tajana, but we got to kind of wrap this up, and I do want to finish the marketing and the public perception portion, because what you bring up is a really big issue that I think we're going to have you back on for a whole episode. Who's behind this and why are they doing it? But let's just let Daniel finish here, because we do have to wrap up, if that's cool. And then Daniel, you did talk about Ezra Levant talking to Danielle Smith about it. He framed it as a UK thing. He didn't even identify that Canada was doing it. He framed it as UK is doing it. And I'll be speaking to Danielle Smith on the 2nd. And this is one of the subjects that I'm talking to her about, because it came out of the Alberta Next panel.
That's awesome. I would love to see you press her on the issue as well, because she gave a pretty soft response. Yeah, Ezra and Rebel do definitely try and ignore us. They like to play the other side of the issue. He's made some comments kind of implying that we're feds and stuff like this. I know the Rebel is aware of us. They just actively try and ignore us.
They want to acknowledge it, yeah.
But regardless, like he's using the word. That's a W in my books. I don't care. I prefer to go on his show and hash it out and explain to the wider audience, which and I think Rebel News' audience would definitely like to hear a truly patriotic nationalist message. I'm sure they would like to hear more about remigration. Clearly, he thinks it's an issue that appeals to his audience. He's asking people about it, but why he designates it as a UK thing? No, like it's a concept that came out of France, and it's taking over European countries all over. So clearly, Ezra's not very informed on it. But I'm happy to see him.
He's informed. He just doesn't want to give credit where credit's due in Canada. That's my opinion, and I'm going to be clear about that because he's suing me. That's my opinion, that he's just not wanting to give any headlines to Canadian efforts.
Yeah. Whatever the motive is, the result is the same. But our goal, I don't need credit. I don't need any of this. As long as we're pushing the window in the right direction, as long as, even if people are using the word wrong, the first step is people need to hear the word. Next step is we'll make sure they understand what it means. And third step is they embrace it as the solution. So really, we're still in this phase one. And honestly, I didn't have it in my plan that it's like 5 months in, Danielle Smith is being asked about remigration. Like that was not the checkpoint. Like we're way ahead of schedule, and I'm excited to see where we'll be in a couple more months.
Fair. So Greg, as I come to you, you came to Calgary, you stood up on an overpass on one of our major highways here in Alberta. You had the remigration sign, no masks and no mainstream coverage, but you did have local independent media coverage on it. So let's go ahead and touch on that. And how do you continue this conversation going? Because yes, Danielle Smith now heard the term, she responded to it, and she'll be talking about it again on January 2nd.
Yeah. There's a lot of members out in Calgary of the Dominion Society, and they're really hungry. They're really hungry to spread the good word of remigration, because as I said earlier, people recognize intuitively that it is an existential threat if we don't start to kind of reverse the flow of immigration. And just kind of a couple things on the marketing. Daniel, Ken, the other board member, and myself, we came from the People's Party. I ran in 2019 for the People's Party. Okay, in 2019, we were saying, hey, let's cut the immigration numbers in half. Back in 2019, even saying that, that's an idea that a lot of people would agree with in 2025. When he said that in 2019, you would get called the worst of the worst. Get out of here. You're a Hitler, Nazi loving, whatever. But that just goes to show how, like, we know the game is what I'm saying. The people of Dominion Society, we know that we're going to get called names and all of this. And really, we take it as a badge of honor. You know, like, that shows that we are threatening the status quo. We are disrupting the regular programming. They do not want that. They do not want that. So they're going to use their cheap tactics, guilt by association, you know, all these different labeling, all these smears. They're going to weaponize the hate experts at Anti-Hate, a discredited organization. They're going to do everything they can. And we see that as positive feedback, believe it or not. All that being said, since we know the game, we know that we're not going to give them low-hanging fruit. We know that there's a way to get our message out there that is going to be compelling to regular people, and the smears are going to fall on deaf ears. They're not going to work. And I do want to, I alluded to it earlier, but I said, you know, it's like remigration policy, like being a proud Canadian and understanding our history and respecting that. Like, it's very basic stuff. And I like Dominion because it comes from a place of love and of self-respect and self-preservation. There is a side to that which is ugly. Sorry, I should say it's not a side. It's like the opposite side of that is like, it's resentment driven. It's kind of hate driven. Like, oh, I just want these people gone. You know, like, we're very, very conscious of the difference between the two. And we make sure it's coming from that place of love, and people can feel that vibe. They feel that vibe. They feel comfortable signing up as a member, wearing the Dominion Society pin. And I think Daniel kind of summarized it well, which is this is kind of just the beginning of like getting this out into the ether. It's kind of, we're going to get a lot of pushback. People are not going to understand it. They're going to think it's all this stuff. But slowly but surely, it's changing the conversation. And, you know, a year from now, you're going to see that this is going to be a very popular movement. And why not? It's Canadians waking up. It's remoralizing themselves. It's addressing the existential crisis. And it's giving people an actual solution to these problems.
Okay, thanks for that a lot. I really appreciate that. Jeff, as we finish up with you, Project Cactus is something you're familiar with. They went after Maxime Bernier, the platform, called it racist. 5 years later, it's mainstream now suddenly. But what I'm trying to get at is, you know, with the stink, it's hard to get rid of it. It just keeps coming back up. You got the bots out there and you got the opposition out there. So when it comes to the marketing thing, you highlighted that it's more difficult for you when remigration is framed around white nationalists wearing masks and hiding behind stuff. Do you want to kind of touch on that as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I think that was a reference to the last panel that we did with Jason from Wiretap there, and he was promoting Second Sons, and basically, I think I was just saying, like, it doesn't make our jobs any easier because you guys clearly are dressed like a militia and wearing masks, so it tends to associate this conversation with extremism. So I think that you know, that's unhelpful and counterproductive. And you know, I would encourage, you know, the argument here, I think, is that people are worried about getting doxxed or fired or whatever if they show their faces. And you know, I would say that I understand where you're coming from that, but that doesn't mean you do something that's counterproductive. That means you find something else that's productive, where you can kind of stay behind the scenes. And there are all kinds of people, you know, who help me behind the scenes and stuff like that, who tell me flat out, like, you know, I support what you're doing, but I don't want to be the face of it. I want to remain anonymous. So there's plenty of opportunity for that too. So that was all I was saying, really, is, you know, if we're going to advance the conversation, that we need to engage in productive forms of protest. And actually, I think protesting is kind of counterproductive on its own right now. Like, nobody cares if we protest. So I think that the legal battle space and the political advocacy and lobbying space is probably where it's at. Getting paper trails going, processes that have teeth, that kind of thing. But I digress. You know, protesting itself, I think, is kind of a dead end at this stage. But yeah, I mean, this is, I think, an important conversation to have around, immigration, securing our borders, securing our election system. Like, we are in a war, in my view. Historians will look back and say that World War III started in 2020 with the release of COVID. And I disagree with Tajana in terms of what the center of gravity is. As you know, I believe that it's the CCP and Communist China. Their proxies, their various proxies and allies, of course, Russia, Iran, and the like. So, yeah, we've never been in this much trouble as a nation, and Canada needs warriors like never before. So, I think it's nice to see that people are armoring up, but at the same time, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot.
Okay, so fair enough. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I didn't know what to expect, but I did know it was going to be a conversation that was going to get definitely interesting at the minimum, but very necessary. Over the last couple of months, I've seen it pop up a lot. I wondered what it meant. And of course, when you have a dominant group pushing hard, that they sometimes overshadow everybody else's efforts. This is why Dominion Society was important to have you both on, to clarify it and understand it, because not everybody sits down and reads an entire website. People sometimes need clips or podcasts to get through things. So Nico, I'm going to throw it to you. Hopefully we learned something here today. It may not be complete. It may not be fully understood, but at least we got a lot in 2.5 hours tonight.
I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you to Greg. Thank you to Daniel taking the invitation, because God knows you take a lot of heat. And probably that people don't give you the respect that you deserve, at least a platform for you guys to be able to speak about it. Because like I said before, a lot of stuff that you guys say that I agree with. So good for you guys for doing what you do. And thank you for being here. Thank you for all the people in the comment section. Agree or disagree. The whole point is civil discourse. So I want to have those conversations, those important conversations, because like it or not, remigration is something that's on the table now, and Canadians are talking about it, and it's not going away. So thanks again, guys.
Absolutely. Daniel, goodbye of some sort.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on. It was a fun discussion. It was kind of all over the place a bit, but it's always fun to chat about your idea, or our ideas. If you guys are ever looking for a voice for a nationalist perspective, we're happy to come on. I consider that a part of our job. We want to be kind of effective spokespeople for the nationalist movement, and steward our message in effective ways into a larger and more mainstream audience. So we always appreciate the opportunity, and we're fine being called names, and we don't mind fighting with people. It's all part of the fight, and like. To us, we're really standing for something bigger than ourselves. We're standing for our ancestors and our descendants. We're standing for our nation. So a few mean internet comments, some snide comments, passive aggressive comments that we have to spar with. It's all part of the fun for us, really. So thanks for having us on. It was great. We'd be happy to come back on in the future. And if I encourage anyone who's interested in to learn more about our organization or anything like that, to check out our website, dominionsociety.ca. You can learn a bit more about our ideas, or you can sign up as a member or make a small donation to help us to grow faster and do more. But yeah, no, thanks for having us on. It was a great night, and long live Canada.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Greg, good night, and don't forget to mention your movie and maybe where someone could go watch it next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Jason. Thanks for having me. If you want to see The Hate Network, which is a documentary about the state of free speech in Canada, which exposes the hate experts, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network in Canada, you can go to savefreespeech.ca. And if you're in the Toronto area, you can click on the Toronto link, or you can just go straight to freespeechtio.eventbrite.com. Buy tickets. We'll see you in Toronto on January 11th. That is when the next screening for this documentary will be, and I will see you there.
Jan 11th, Toronto. Go check it out. I have watched it. It's a very good movie.
David Haskell's going to be there. Henry Hildebrandt, Pastor Henry Hildebrandt's going to be there. Kareem Assad is going to be there, who knows a lot about Canadian Anti-Hate Network. They'll be there for the Q&A, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Excellent. And I hope you share the Q&A like you did with the Calgary one. That was a lot of information there. Jeff, you want to have a goodbye there?
Sure. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and guys, thanks for coming on and facing the heat. I can't definitely can't fault you for that. It is a tough conversation to have, but the most difficult conversations are also the most important. So.
And I also want to say thank you to everybody on the panel. Tiana had to run, and I really did appreciate everybody's comments. And this is when I reached out. I said, hey, you guys want to talk? Nobody said no. They said, absolutely. Let's have a conversation. And a nice civil one. So I really appreciate that. And to the audience, make sure you give everybody a follow. All our handles are in our name here. So give us all a follow. And we do this roughly every 2 weeks, but stay tuned to Nico and myself, and we'll announce the next one shortly. But Nico, thank you very much for taking the time again tonight. I know it's a long one for you. We got the little one. Daniel, great to meet you in person-ish, virtually, at least. I know there were some emails and stuff as of booking Max and other things back in the day. Greg, always awesome to see you. And thanks a lot for hosting me at your event in Calgary. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your movie. And Jeff, you are the wisest person I know most of the days, especially with that big beard of yours. So I do appreciate that a lot. And I'm really glad we can have a civil conversation. We can agree to disagree. We can agree to agree. And like you said, 80 to 90% of the stuff you agree on, that's a good start. It's the other 10% we need to discuss. So thanks to everybody watching. Do tune in next time. And thank you very much for hanging out with us. God bless.